Chapter 1863. Jiang Pingji wanted to say, "I don't understand," but she was silent when she saw the marshal's penetrating gaze. He's an adult now. He had 3 children in 2 lives. How could he be considered underage at this age? His Excellency, the marshal laughed. What I mean is that his physical age is underage, not his mental age. His bone age and his registered age are underage. The robot that protects him cannot be revoked. The Federation matches every child with a family nanny robot. It will provide comprehensive protection for the child from birth until they are 18 years old. Before the child is 18 years old, whether it's voluntary or involuntary, having a deep physical relationship is considered rape. Wei Si's situation is even more special. He's a person with abnormal embryonic genes. The protection period is from birth until death. The robot's protection mechanism is stronger. Jiang Pingji was speechless. She had been bragging about the federal law for so many years. It was the first time she wanted to hammer the guy who made it to death. The Human Federation had comprehensive protection mechanisms for infants, toddlers, children, teenagers, and youths under the legal age. When a fully developed newborn comes out of the nursery, it will be matched with a family nanny robot. Not to mention strangers, even the child's parents can't hurt the child protected by the robot. The child's genes are bound to the family nanny robot. It won't be released until the child is 18 years old. Of course, the separation from the family nanny robot only means that the child has the ability to be independent and protect himself. It doesn't mean that they are an adult. 2,000 years ago, the age of adulthood in the Federation was 35 years old. Later, because of the war and the further development of technology, it was lowered to 30 years old. Even so, Wei Si was 1 year and 2 months away from adulthood. The most annoying thing was that he was a special agent. The standard of adulthood couldn't be measured by age. He still needed to pass the special department's intelligence and living ability test. Wei Si was an ancient person through and through. He didn't even know how to boil water. How could she expect him to learn how to live normally before he was 30 years old? Jiang Pingji only had one thought in her mind. She wanted to curse him 10,000 times in his face. The marshal seemed to enjoy seeing Jiang Pingji's depressed expression. He smiled and added fuel to the fire. Wei Si is also a hero who has made contributions to the Federation. Under the request of the original research institute, the robot bound to him has been upgraded to the ultimate state. If an outsider wants to harm him and does something that violates the robot manual, not only will it trigger the protection mechanism for the cub, but it will also put him on the blacklist, and he will also be automatically prosecuted. I hope you have a clear understanding of the seriousness of the matter. How strong was the fighting power of an ordinary household nanny robot? Jiang Pingji could not subdue her opponent without using her ultimate move. Only a small number of descendants of big shots could afford to use them because of their scarcity and high maintenance costs. The Federation was unable to supply them on a large scale. They were fully equipped and had considerable combat power. It was not a problem for Jiang Pingji to defeat them, but the time it took to subdue them was more than enough for the robots to send out a distress signal. The nanny robot sounded the alarm, and the nearby patrolling security robots would swarm over. Jiang Pingji was speechless. In the eyes of the marshal, how lustful was Jiang Pingji? The marshal could not help but laugh. The future marshal of the Federation can't be tainted by such a thing. What do you think? She said. She just wanted to flip the table and smash things. Her legal partner of 2 lifetimes was now separated by a robot. The marshal, the old man, still asked her what to say. She said nothing. The marshal also knew that Jiang Pingji could not take his teasing. He laughed and ended the communication. Jiang Pingji was speechless. He's teasing you with the adjutant. Jiang Pingji looked at the place where the communication screen disappeared. A man with red hair and red eyes suddenly appeared beside her. Without a doubt, this man was the current sky brain of the Federation. Aren't you busy? Jiang Pingji could not help but roll her eyes. Sky Brain had to maintain the entire virtual network. It was a huge project, yet it had the time to appear in front of her. After returning from the mission, Jiang Pingji found out about the relationship between Sky Brain and the ancestors of the Jiang family. She did not expect that she had a higher authority than the marshal. No, because the marshal still controlled the emperor's head blade that restrained Skybrain. Skybrain was afraid of him. Therefore, Jiang Pengji and the marshal's authority were still the same for the time being. Unless Jiang Pengji became the next marshal. Skybrain's cold face revealed a hint of a smile. From a certain point of view, you should be considered my descendant. Jiang Pengji was speechless. The ancestors of the Jiang family who married into the Jiang family 2,000 years ago are of the same origin as me. From this point of view, you are indeed considered my descendant. Jiang Pengji could not help but laugh. I thought it was a lie. I didn't expect it to be true. She was not curious about the history of the Jiang family. She was too lazy to find out who the Skybrain brother who married into the Jiang family was. She only needed to know that Skybrain was kind to her. That was enough. Of course, this kind of kindness was not much. If Skybrain really valued the so-called descendants of the same origin, she would not be the only one left of the Jiang family's direct line of descent. Do you have a name? Skybrain said, I don't have a name. If I really wanted to say a name, it's just a code name of King. After a while, Skybrain asked Jiang Pengji, these old foxes of the Federation are really smart. They pushed you to the top. I guess they want to use this method to peacefully take back the authority that is in your hands. Aren't you angry at all about this? Jiang Pengji pouted. What can I do if I'm angry? Do you want to learn from your predecessor and rebel and cause trouble? That was obviously impossible. In order to maintain the current peace of the Federation, Jiang Pengji could sacrifice anything, including herself. The way the Federation dealt with it was considered mild. It was just a scheme. Jiang Pengji really had no need to be angry. In terms of the outcome, the Federation wanted to take back Skybrain's authority for the sake of stability. But in terms of the process, Jiang Pengji would eventually become the marshal of the Federation with real power. She would still be the beneficiary. Since it was a win-win situation, she would endure the slightest bit of scheming. Skybrain laughed. You're much more broad-minded than your adoptive parents. Jiang Pengji rested her chin on her hand. Adoptive parents? Skybrain sneered. A pair of man and woman who have lived for 2,000 years and haven't died. They should have died long ago, yet they keep jumping up and down. Jiang Pengji was speechless. It sounded like there was a lot of resentment. And then? Why do you say they are my adoptive parents? Skybrain said, back then, the direct line of descent of the Jiang family suffered a devastating blow. They heard the news and rushed over, but they only had time to save you. They dug you out from the ruins of the machines and raised you for 2 years. But you were born with the Emperor's fate, and they were outsiders. Raising you for a long time would affect your destiny, so they left you at the entrance of the orphanage. You know what happened next, so I won't explain more. Although it was said to let her live, it also ordered Skybrain to secretly observe Jiang Pengji's growth progress. Perhaps because she had been paying attention to a child for a long time, Jiang Pengji had some special meaning to Skybrain. The direct line of descent of the Jiang family who had died probably added up to her weight in Skybrain. Jiang Pengji held her forehead and sighed. It sounds quite bizarre. She thought she was struggling at the grassroots. She didn't expect to climb to the top and find out that she had the opportunity to take a helicopter. Holding a useless expired ticket in her hand, she was really King crazy. You don't seem very happy. Jiang Pengji rested her chin on her hand and sneered. I have no feelings. Skybrain. She was indeed a child of the Jiang family. She was cold-hearted, cold-blooded, and rational. They came from the same source and came down from the same production line. Jiang Pengji hesitated for a while and asked, How high is my authority? Skybrain said, Very high. Excluding your adoptive parents and the marshal who holds the Emperor's head blade, you are the highest. Jiang Pengji rubbed her chin and said, Can I change a person's data? For example, secretly changing one's age or something. Skybrain? If she used her authority to do such a thing, believe it or not, the ancestors of the Jiang family would come back to life from their graves in anger. No, I'm a Skybrain with integrity. I can't help the wicked do evil and help you bully minors. Jiang Pingji. For all. Ngungo, if she couldn't even do that, how could she be considered a dog with authority? Sky Brain said helplessly, instead of thinking about cheating, it's better to help him adapt to this era. You have to know that if he doesn't pass the intelligence and living ability test, he won't be released even if he's 300 years old, let alone 30 years old. Unless he defected from the Federation and left the Federation to go to another star region, Jiang Pingji wouldn't be able to spare the nanny robot. Jiang Pingji, what the hell was up with these stupid rules? Couldn't they learn to be flexible? With such a mood, Jiang Pingji followed Skybrain's guidance to the research lab where Wei Ci was currently. Opening the door, she saw an ancient inner residence. If it wasn't for the high-tech feeling of the scenery one step away, she would have thought she had traveled through time again. Virtual environment? Skybrain laughed. To protect the mental state of the child, the nanny robot will try to simulate the environment that the child is most familiar with and at ease. Jiang Pingji, could these guys not associate words like child and minor with Wei Ci? The more she reminded them, the more she felt like she was a beast. Jiang Pingji looked around and finally found a person who seemed to be curled up in a blanket in the corner. 3 steps away stood a round-headed nanny robot. This robot wasn't the common white model, but a very low-profile gold color. The word nouveau riche was written all over its body. Don't come near. The robot stopped Jiang Pingji but didn't make any further resistance. Jiang Pingji? She didn't mean any harm. Skybrain sniggered. The nanny robot will detect the emotions of those who approach. Your emotions aren't right. A person with a brain full of useless thoughts couldn't get close to a child. Jiang Pingji definitely didn't have any good thoughts at the moment. Jiang Pingji, she just wanted to hug Wei Ci. That was judged as useless thoughts? As she spoke, a head popped out from the blanket, revealing a pair of pure black and bright eyes. The eyes were too clean. So clean that Jiang Pingji felt unfamiliar, but she was sure that deep in the eyes was a soul she was familiar with. When their eyes met, the black-haired youth who was hiding in the corner hesitated for a moment, then suddenly pounced on her and hugged her, burying his head in her neck and shoulder. Your Majesty, is it really you? The youth's voice was also unfamiliar. Perhaps because he hadn't used it for a long time, it sounded hoarse and obscure. Jiang Pingji, she couldn't help but blink. Wei Ci's language at the moment was the elegant language of his previous life, not the federal common language. This meant that he had to learn from zero and understand this completely strange and dazzling world bit by bit. Before the age of 30, could he really pass the intelligence and living ability test? Yes, it's me. Jiang Pingji raised her hand and rubbed the back of Wei Ci's head. She couldn't help but hug him back. Before she exerted any strength, the robot at the side began to sound a yellow alarm, indicating that she couldn't use more than a certain amount of strength on the child. Jiang Pingji, damn it, when Wei Ci becomes an adult, he'll definitely use more strength than this. Jiang Pingji explained in a few words and told Wei Ci that the world he was currently in was her hometown. Wei Ci's emotions calmed down and he was no longer flustered. God knows how panicked he was when he died of old age and closed his eyes. Instead of going to the underworld, he found himself in a strange white space. He was even stuffed into a strange and young body and soaked in a pink liquid without a stitch of clothing on him. The strange round-headed thing could speak, but he couldn't understand what it said. The people who came in later were dressed strangely, and he couldn't understand what they said either. He never thought that this would be the world from Her Majesty's hometown. Once he accepted this explanation, Wei Ci calmed down. He was less afraid of everything around him and more curious. Given that Wei Ci's situation was too special, Jiang Pingji applied to the Research Institute for Accelerated Language and Basic Knowledge. To put it simply, it was to instill some commonly used knowledge into his brain. It would take time to completely digest and master it, but it was more efficient and faster than self-study. This technique was targeted at people in a vegetative state who slept for a long time, or special people who were derailed from society for some reason. Of course, not all knowledge could be instilled. The amount of it depended on the surgeon's mental brain. Wei Ci's mental strength was abnormally strong, and his innate mental ability was healing, so the absorption would be faster. What is this? Wei Ci sat on the strange white chair obediently. He didn't dare to move his body, only turning his eyeballs to look up. His head was covered with a strange semicircular cover. Countless tentacles extended out of the cover, which made him shiver. These tentacles were similar to the tentacle tubes he saw when he woke up from the pink liquid. Jiang Pingji said, "It's a small surgery. Don't worry, I'm here with you." The two of them interlocked their fingers. Because it was Wei Ci's permission, the nanny robot squatting at the side did not issue a warning. She could stabilize Wei Ci's emotions, so the robot's judgment of her was safe. Jiang Pingji did not lie to Wei Ci. The entire transmission process took less than 5 minutes. Wei Ci shook his slightly dizzy head. Other than feeling a little sleepy, he did not feel anything else. Jiang Pingji then tried to converse with him in the common language of the Federation. Wei Ci understood, but when he subconsciously replied, he used the elegant language from his previous life. After a while, he widened his eyes in shock. He actually understood those strange languages? The surgery was very effective, but to completely absorb and master it requires more practice. Wei Ci was speechless. He seemed to have inexplicably learned an alien language. He could understand it, but he did not know how to speak it. Or rather, he knew how to pronounce it, but he could not speak it clearly when he opened his mouth. Under such circumstances, he could only practice more. There was no other shortcut. So magical? The famous foreign language expert of the Jiang dynasty spent his entire life to master 5 languages, but he learned one in less than half a cup of tea? Jiang Pingji could not help but laugh. There's something even more magical. I'll accompany you to familiarize yourself with it. From a certain perspective, she had been away from the Federation for almost 100 years. She needed some time to revise. Wei Ci calmed his nervous and flustered heart and nodded heavily. A month later, Jiang Pingji looked at the brand new intelligence on Wei Ci's wrist with satisfaction. As a dog with limited authority, Jiang Pingji got someone to put Wei Ci's identity under her household registration and conveniently made him his guardian. Underscore smiley face. Angle underscores she, Jiang Pingji, became Wei Ci's guardian and adopter before he became an adult. Today was the day they left the research institute. These days, Wei Ci had been learning and mastering basic knowledge such as how to dress, how to cook, how to order takeout, how to locate himself, how to call the police for help, how to log into the virtual network, and how to understand the price of goods in this era. But then again, Wei Ci had a nanny robot to look after him 24/7. Did he still need to learn how to cook and order takeout? Jiang Pingji was somewhat at a loss about this setting. The robot's reply was that Wei Ci was recovering well and he needed to learn to live independently as much as possible before leaving the robot. Underscore smiley face. Angle. Underscore whether it was in ancient times or the interstellar era, money was the most important thing. Jiang Pingji let Wei Ci connect his account and spend the money in it freely. She was also a rich person. An account that was not worth a few zeros was enough for Wei Ci to buy and spend. What surprised her was that Wei Ci's original account actually had a considerable amount of savings. She checked the statement and found that other than the recent transfer of $1 million, which was the reward for being a hero, there was a monthly transfer of 30,000 to 40,000 credits. It probably started when Wei Ci, who was 212175, was 3 years old. The account that transferred the money was from a research institute. Jiang Pingji was speechless. She suddenly remembered what the marshal had said. Wei Ci was not only a subject of observation by the research institute, but he was also a member of the research institute, helping them to earn money. Those words were actually not a lie? The nanny robot's reply also confirmed this. Because he did not have a spiritual consciousness, Wei Ci could not freely control the innate spiritual realm, but he could use special methods to guide it and make it work. The research institute needed this kind of power, so Wei Ci was classified as a member of the research institute. He received a monthly salary, all kinds of insurance and benefits were complete, and there was a bonus for completing a big project. There was also a New Year's money at the end of the year underscore smiley face. Angle underscore the most amazing operation was Wei Si's original nanny robot would also use the money as a guarantee. Why is there such a setting? Heavenly Brain said, because we are not sure how long he can work. In order to maintain the quality of life of such special personnel, the federal government allows the nanny robot to help them manage their accounts and carry out guaranteed financial management. However, most of the special personnel's accounts only have the guaranteed relief allocated by the federal government to ensure a normal life. Wei CI is a special case. After so many years of financial management, his savings are quite considerable. Jiang Pingji was speechless. When Wei CI heard about this, he asked if she could continue with the job. Can I still starve you? Wei CI said, but it's rare to have a way to make a living. Naturally, I have to give it a try. I can't be a person who does not work and cannot distinguish between the 5 grains. In the previous 2 lives, he had been an official, received his salary, and had some stable income under his name. In this life, he still did not know how to realize his value, but he definitely could not be a useless person who did not know anything. Jiang Pingji respected Wei Si's choice. She could also see the contradiction and confusion in Wei Si's heart. It was impossible for her to stay by his side for a long time. There was still a lot of backlog in the army. It would be good if Wei Ci could find a job and integrate into the new world as much as possible. The previous research institute was very easy to talk to. They helped Wei Ci write a letter of recommendation, recommending him to work at the special medical center on the central planet. There were not many people whose mental strength was strong enough to condense a spiritual domain. Wei Ci's attribute was the extremely rare healing, so he was popular everywhere. Now that he had self-awareness, it meant that he could control his abilities smoothly and freely. His value was even greater. This healing ability not only targeted the injuries of ordinary people, but it could also speed up the healing of mental injuries. Jiang Pingji was speechless. People who were so awesome were like cheats wherever they went. When they arrived on the central planet, Jiang Pingji and Wei Ci received a piece of news. This news also made Wei Ci feel like he was injected with chicken blood. He absorbed everything in the new world like a sponge and strived to pass the adulthood test as soon as possible before the age of 30. He was also speechless about this setting. At 30, he was actually still a child. I knew that the group of old foxes in the federal government liked to fleece sheep. Not only did they catch me to fleece, but they also want to pull a few more sheep with them. This news was very simple, and it also confirmed Jiang Pingji's previous guess. In the first life, Jiang Yan and Wei Cong were extradited here after ending their journey in that world. However, because of the secret organization regulations of the federal government, they would not have the memories of their previous lives. In layman's terms, it was the soul reincarnating again, but this kind of reincarnation could be controlled by humans. The same soul, 2 lives. Where's Liana? Jiang Pingji looked at the notice with a sour expression. Her life hasn't come to an end yet. Because the influence of the former sky brain has disappeared, the flow of time in the 2 dimensions will synchronize. Lian will probably need a few more years. Anyway, we'll see each other in the future. But for now, the most important thing is still you. Wei Ci pointed at himself blankly. Me? Jiang Pingji could not help but curl up on the sofa dejectedly. According to the federal law, underage people can't apply for childcare. She spread out her hands and told Wei Ci the unfortunate news. In the federal government, it's illegal for a woman to give birth to a child. If an adult male or female of the right age wants a child, they have to apply to the childcare agency. Wei Ci was still underage. She did not realize that the 2 of them slept in separate rooms. There was even a nanny robot guarding outside Wei Ci's room. Wei Ci was speechless. I can touch you now. I can't do anything below the forehead of an adult. As soon as she finished speaking, the nanny robot sent her another yellow warning. It signaled for Jiang Pingji to restrain the improper thoughts in her mind about Wei Ci. Wei Ci was speechless. I'll tear you apart sooner or later. Jiang Pingji angrily threw the pillow at the robot with a round head. The robot said, detected that the guardian has violent emotions and attacked a special robot. Yellow warning once. This month, a total of 12 times. I forgot to mention, yellow warning. This thing cannot be too much. If it is more than 30 times a month, the guardian cannot be within 10 meters of the child. In serious cases, the guardian will be deprived of custody. Jiang Pengji was speechless. When will these days come to an end? Genius in a second, remember this site's address. Mobile version. Chapter 1864. On the virtual network, Central Planet's trending list. Hashtag treasure of the world, national first love hashtag. Such a trending topic quietly hovered at the 100th position, and its popularity was still slowly rising. Clicking on the topic, the first trending topic was a blogger who posted a few candid photos and videos, using the tone of a fanatic to praise his looks. Kaigwa, now I'm rationally disgusted when I see national XX. Years of separation, just a few refined photos and you're talking about national first love. Don't you know that my first love is a paper doll? Tao Yao Zhuozhua. Should I start scolding directly or follow the procedure? After a while, the style of the comments changed again. Lao Jia Li Xiang. But speaking of which, whether it's a 2D photo or a 3D projection, this guy is really good looking. The netizens thought that the handsome guy in the photo was another popular celebrity in the entertainment circle, or a new type of virtual character produced by some paper doll company trying to gain exposure by being on the trending list. This was an old trick, and they were already used to it. Most of the netizens who clicked on the link got a bunch of photos for free, exclaiming that the photoshopped photos were really good, that the plastic surgery was perfect, and so on. Until a certain internet celebrity with more than 1 billion fans came down. Central Planet's Special Medical Center v. Violation of portrait, complaint. The netizens who followed Central Planet's Special Medical Center were dumbfounded. Central Planet's Special Medical Center was a very special medical organization. Usually, they only reposted and did not create original content. The people who followed them were either business tycoons, political tycoons, or military tycoons. The official account looked very relaxed, but in fact, it was very powerful. It had been hundreds of years since the account was created, and the owner of the official account had changed time and time again. Currently, the official blogger was quite aloof and never posted original content. Reformed Spring Breeze Mandy. Oh my, is this Xiao Yang in real life? Guoli Cheng. This is the new blogger's first original post after taking office, right? Huiyuan Taoji. To let the blogger Xiao Yang personally reprimand him, this national first love has a background. Not long after Central Planet's Special Medical Center V posted his complaint, the original blogger's photos were deleted. Of course, there were some clever netizens who had saved the photos. Outstanding looks always left a deep impression on people. Netizens who had been to Central Planet's Special Medical Center recognized the real identity of national first love. Fried String Bug Clan Kakukyo? Isn't this Dr. Wei CI? The most idiotic netizen. I was slacking off at work and climbed up to have a look. I didn't expect the treasure boy that I've been keeping for so long to be exposed. According to insiders, Dr. Wei CI was sent here out of nowhere. Airborne? Even in the interstellar era, they didn't have a good impression of members who were parachuted in. Yang Tian Kigeojio, what's wrong with being airborne? In the entire Federation, there were less than 10 healers in the spiritual domain. He was also an innate spirit domain expert, and his strength was estimated to be comparable to a level 5 gene unlocked. Wasn't the central government's official Weibo doing this because they were afraid of being poached? Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Based on his confident tone, it was obvious that he was someone in the know. A spiritual domain, a healing spiritual domain that was condensed innately, was highly sought after no matter where he went. There was a commotion online for a while, but it did not blow up. Wei Si's life was not affected at all, and he still worked from 9 to 5 every day. When the medical center needed him, he would provide assistance. When he was not needed, he would study all kinds of content in his small office and sign up for several ancient literature classes. In this era, learning was convenient. Adults who had entered society could also attend virtual schools. Wei Ci signed up for the elementary class of ancient literature. Usually he had 4 classes, but today he only had 1 class before he hurriedly went offline. Today was a very important day. The Central Planet Nursery Institution sent a message saying that the babies in the nursery pod were about to be born. Jiang Pingji was busy outside and said that she would only be back in 2 or 3 days. Wei Ci could only pick up the babies and bring them home alone. Wei Ci had been looking forward to this day since a few months ago. He had done enough strategies, from the transportation to the registration queue at the Central Planet Nursery Institution, to where to apply for a birth certificate for the newborns, to receive a smart chip, to matching a family nanny robot. Even though he had memorized these contents by heart, he was still so nervous that his forehead was sweating when he actually did it. Then he realized that he was thinking too much. Her Majesty was the commander of the Federal Army. As a family member of a military marriage, Wei Ci could go through the Green Channel to complete the formalities. Thank you. Wei Ci smiled and thanked the robot cylinder that was not even as tall as his waist. The robot said, "You're welcome." With the robot leading the way, Wei Ci completed the formalities very smoothly. He received the child's birth certificate, smart chip, and an electronic account. He chose a name, Jiang Yan. Seeing the 2 words being recorded in the family account, the corners of Wei Ci's lips curled up. After a busy afternoon, Wei Ci took a pile of documents and certificates to the nursery window to pick up the baby. Please verify the paternity DNA sequence code. A familiar-looking robot with a round head rolled its wheels over. Wei Ci followed the instructions and placed his finger on the cover that it extended out. His fingertip hurt slightly and a bead of blood emerged. After about 3 seconds, the robot with a round head said, "Verification successful. He is indeed Jiang Yan's father." Wei Ci asked warmly, "Where's the child?" The robot turned its head and its abdomen became transparent from the flowing gold metal, revealing the white and chubby baby lying inside. It turned out that the robot's abdomen was hollow. The robot's abdomen was padded with a soft cushion. The baby could sleep inside. Wei Ci asked it, "Can I hold the child?" The robot said, "Newborns have low immunity. It is not recommended to hold the child in public." Wei Ci reluctantly looked at the child's eyebrows and said softly, "Then let's go home." The robot replied, "Okay." Wei Ci looked at the robot worriedly. Although he knew that this was a family nanny robot specially designed for children, he was still worried about the child's safety. Would it be bumpy lying down like this? The robot's abdomen didn't look big. Would Yenner feel crowded? How was her breathing? Before going back, the robot suggested that Wei Ci go to the supermarket to buy milk powder and clothes for the child. During this period, the baby cried once. Wei Ci saw 4 lifelike hands emerge from the belly of the robot. 2 hands were used to change the baby's urine into a paper diaper, 1 hand was holding a milk bottle to feed the baby, and the other hand was used to throw the changed diaper into another small compartment to dissolve it into trash. When changing the diaper, Wei Ci saw that the robot even had a mosaic of the child's body. Smiley face. The robot said, "Federal citizens have the right to privacy. Even if she has just left the nursery for less than half a day, it's the same." The key parts could not be exposed to the light of day without permission. Wei Ci was speechless. The robot quickly changed the diaper, fed the baby, and skillfully held the baby and burped. Only when Yenner let out a small sound did the robot put the baby down. Wei Ci was speechless. He couldn't help it all. Smiley face. The only thing he could do was swipe his card to buy things. He didn't need to carry things on the way back because the supermarket would have a special express delivery. When they arrived at their destination, the things were delivered. It's really a convenient world that I couldn't imagine before. Every aspect of life was so comprehensive that he couldn't imagine it. For example, other than residents and authorized robots, outsiders and robots couldn't get close to the living area. Wei Ci wanted to bring the robot and the baby back, so he had to go to the property management department to register. Opening the door, Wei Ci saw a pair of slippers at the entrance. "Pumping your back?" I rushed back at top speed. "Are you touched, Zixiao?" Jiang Pingji hugged him. Her voice sounded a little tired. She originally wanted to bring Yen home with Wei Ci to give him a surprise, but they were still half a day late. The family robot determined that the environment was safe and the air was up to standard. Only then did it open the door of the protective cabin, revealing the baby inside. That's great. Yen is back with us again. Jiang Pingji carried the baby out. The robot took the initiative to drag in the shopping items and tidy them up. Wei Ci said, when Song and Lian come back, it'll be a real family reunion. Jiang Pingji smiled and poked the baby's little face. There's still a wait. Wei Ci said, there's always hope. It's only 3 to 5 years. We can afford to wait. There was no longer the involuntary and mutual deceit of the past. He only hoped that they could get what they wanted in the end and live up to their original intentions. Chapter 1865. As an antique, Wei Ci had recently become obsessed with the virtual internet. He opened an account for himself and shared bits and pieces of his daughter's life on it every day. Occasionally, he would share his calligraphy and paintings. Regardless of the weather, he recorded from his daughter Jiang Yan's 1-month-old birthday until she was about to go to school. Many netizens who seemed to be annoyed also developed a daily routine of watching him raise his daughter. Relying on his good calligraphy and good classical painting skills, Wei Ci also became a famous figure in the circle. He did not have a team to manage fans for him, nor did he organize activities like lucky draws to increase his fans. After a few years, he inexplicably became a small blogger with tens of millions of fans, and these tens of millions of fans were active fans. Half of them shouted, "Prince Charming, you are so classical and elegant. I want to go with you to the parenting registry to get a little monkey." The other half shouted and asked him, "Father-in-law, does your baby still lack a son-in-law/daughter-in-law who has gone to an advanced college and an annual salary of $1 million? Other than working at the special medical center on the central planet, he would also take on commercial calligraphy and paintings when he had nothing to do, such as inscribing words, writing couplets, or painting. Needless to say, after a few years of accumulation, the money he earned from his calligraphy and paintings had actually saved up a large sum of money. As a famous figure in the circle and a rare antique figure, Wei Ci's calligraphy was valued in the tens of thousands, and the price of his paintings also started from that. I always feel that I'm being overcharged. Wei Ci did not understand commercial calligraphy and paintings when he first took on them, so he mentioned it during the daily video call with Jiang Pingji. Jiang Pingji turned around and sent someone to check the market price. She set a price for him that was higher than a newcomer's, but slightly lower than the standards of a god. Wei Ci felt that the price was too high at one glance. He was not a famous artist, and his calligraphy and paintings had no collectible value. Wouldn't the customers scold him if he set such a high price? Jiang Pingji said, "It's worth this money. If they want to buy it, then buy it. If not, then forget it." Zixiao's hands are precious. The husband and wife could talk every day and hug each other at close range through the virtual network, but they still spent more time apart. Jiang Pingji was busy outside. She was either on the way to war, patrolling, or conducting military exercises to intimidate the borders. The way the war was an eye-opener for Wei Ci. At the same time, he knew that the danger was incomparable to his previous life. He wanted to help, but he also knew that he did not have the military foundation of this era. He could only work hard to take care of himself and his daughter so that His Majesty would not have any worries. Fortunately, there weren't many major battles left. There were only some remnant soldiers who were stubbornly resisting and struggling at death's door. As the leader of the First War Corps, Jiang Pingji was bound to be at the front line, but it was unlikely that she would be personally involved. Her safety was still guaranteed. Wei Ci did not often accept commercial calligraphy and paintings. Most of the time, he amused himself by drawing all kinds of faceless women under smiley face angle. He did not dare to draw the face, for fear that the identity of the person in the painting would be recognized, which would then bring danger to himself and his child. In order to conceal his true purpose, he would also mix in a lot of other content. There were both ancient and modern people in the paintings. There was a dragon robe that represented the emperor, and there were also commoners wearing short clothes. There was a special military uniform that represented the leader of an army, and there was also a casual dress with a shirt and a short skirt. The content of the paintings did not have a fixed theme. Her fans jokingly called her Mrs. Big Tentacle, who relied on her conscience to generate electricity. Wei Si. At first, he was annoyed by the feminine nickname, Madam, but later he realized that it meant big. The people of this era were quite interesting. Daddy. Wei Si had just put away the brush and tidied up the messy desk when the door to the room opened automatically. A fair and plump girl walked in. Wei Si's mood jumped a lot when he heard this form of address. Although it was not the first time the child had called him Daddy, every Daddy made him feel satisfied and happy. In his previous 2 lives, because of his identity and the situation, Wei Si could only respectfully maintain a distance between him and his own flesh and blood. Fortunately, the heavens took pity on him and he could actually live another life, completely making up for his previous regrets. Yen was holding 2 exercise books made of imitation paper and a small pen in her little hand. She looked up at him seriously and said, "Daddy, I've finished my homework." Her pair of watery eyes were like the freshest, most moist black grapes, and her gaze could melt a person. She looked forward to Wei Si's commendation and praise, and Wei Si was not stingy. He lifted her up high. The family nanny robots of this era were too powerful. They could take care of the children when they could only lie down. They could take care of the children when they started to turn over and crawl. When the children learned to walk, they could still be busy and considerate. Even when the children were just learning to speak, they would guide the children to speak. When Jiang Yan was 1 year old, the robot said that she could start early education. Wei Si was eager to show off his talents, but the robot took care of everything. Wei Si was speechless. The only thing that was gratifying was that Jiang Yan liked him even more. Every day, she seriously completed the learning content that the robot arranged for her. She would also look for him to hug and praise and learn the 4 arts from him. The robot was not equipped with these skills, so naturally, it could not compete with Wei Si. "This is Mommy." Jiang Yan nestled in Wei Si's arms and looked at the painting that had just been drawn on the table without blinking. She raised her hand and pointed at the woman in the painting. She said clearly, "When will Mommy come back?" Wei Si stroked her hair and smiled. "Not for the time being." Jiang Yan was a little disappointed, but she still asked seriously, "Is it because you have to protect Yen and the other babies?" Wei Si never avoided the fact that Jiang Pingji could not accompany the children for a long time. He also would not lie to the children and tell them that their mother could come back. To the children, a white lie was deception. It might be more hurtful than telling them the truth directly. Yes, Mommy is a hero. Not only does Hero have to protect our Yen, but he also has to protect more babies of Yen-er's age. Jiang Yan was young, but she knew that the hero was a very impressive person. It was just that she really missed her mother. That was why she begged Wei Si to draw a picture of a family of 3 with her today. Wei Si looked at his daughter's painting and proudly showed it off to the netizens. "Hey, looking at my wife's diary, I want babies every day. It's great to raise a daughter." It was important to know that young people in this era rarely took the initiative to have children. However, looking at Wei Si's daily life, it could be said that there were thousands of young fans who joined the army of raising children. It could be considered as a small contribution to the growth of the federal population. I soar back. "Cuckoo, my wife is really cute. Her painting skills are like her father's. She will also be famous in the future." Reform spring breeze blows Mandy. Speaking of which, there's something very strange. My wife has never talked about her partner, but the baby's mother is always present when he draws. It makes one wonder if there's a conflict between the wife and her partner? Pinching a lotus flower, Xiao Hongchen, what's there to be suspicious about? How can there be a proper marriage these days? Don't everyone go to a nursery to get a child? For adults, the child is their own child. However, if the child's other half wants to raise the child together, no one can stop them. Therefore, it's very normal for adults not to mention the child's other relative, but the child will always talk about his parents. Wei Ci looked at the comment, thought about it, and silently left a sentence. Wei Civ, no, I have a very good relationship with my wife. It's just that her job is special. I want to reduce her exposure on the public platform as much as possible. She's not a public figure, and it's not suitable for her to appear in front of so many netizens. Maybe there will be a chance in the future to introduce her to you. Many netizens were stuffed with dog food by Wei Ci, and they couldn't help but cheer. However, they waited and waited. Wei Ci became a doctor at the Central Planet Special Medical Center, a master of classical calligraphy and painting, and a professor of classical literature. The diaries of the second and third children had been serialized for almost 20 years, but the netizens didn't know who the rumored partner was. Many years later, these fans almost forgot about this. One day, Wei Ci's diary turned into two hands with their fingers intertwined. The gemstone rings on their ring fingers sparkled, and there were two federally issued marriage certificates next to them. Wei Civ, hello, she's my wife, Federal Marshal Jiang. Federal Marshal Jiang V. Yes, let me introduce him to you. He's my wife, Wei Ci. 7th Army Jiang Yan V. Let me introduce him to you. Federal Marshal Jiang Wei Ci. These two are my parents. Fresh graduate Wei Tsong V. Let me introduce him to you. Federal Marshal Jiang Wei Ci. These two are my parents. Jiang Lian V. Let me introduce him to you. Federal Marshal Jiang Wei Ci. These two are my parents. Federal citizens? Hashtag shocking. The parents only cared about showing off their love in public, but the three children were abandoned? Hashtag genius. 1 second to remember this website's address. Mobile version M. Chapter 1866. In September, the chrysanthemum crab was fat. Sure enough, the crabs are the fattest in this season. There was a popular food street near Tianhua University. There were all kinds of food stalls on both sides of the street. It was a lively scene every day. The crab dishes here were famous both at home and abroad. Every year, countless people would come here to taste them. In addition to the unique taste of the crab dishes, there was also a historical reason. It was said that the crab dishes here were developed with the help of the famous historical figure Yang Si. The taste was the most authentic. Perhaps because of these reasons, the people in this city had the habit of eating crabs in September. Although Gu Min was not a food lover, she applied to Tianhua University, so the food street had a certain status. Eat less. Crabs are cold. Aren't you afraid of getting sick? No matter how delicious it is, you can't eat too much. Moderation is the best. Sigh. Chin Chin, are you worried about money? Gu Min pretended to be sad, her eyes glued to the plate and refused to move away. If I'm worried about money, why would I treat you? Jiang Chen skillfully shaved the crab meat and said helplessly, I'm worried that you'll eat too much and get sick again. You heartless little thing. If I knew you were thinking this way, I wouldn't have brought you here. I'm sad. Chin Chin, don't be angry. I was wrong. I won't do it again. Gu Min could not help but put her palms together and beg for mercy until Jiang Qin showed a helpless smile. She changed the topic. Chin Chin, have you lived here for a long time? How can you find such a small and remote shop? Jiang Qin said, not long, but there is a food lover at home. He goes to many places, so of course I know. Gu Min asked, siblings? Jiang Qin shook her head. No, the food lover is my father. This food shop was discovered by Jiang Chen's father when he was young. At that time, business was very good. However, with the development of the times, people's pace of life was getting faster and faster. This kind of business encountered difficulties. The shop owner's son felt that there was no future in being a chef. There was no one to inherit the old man's skills. Guess the dishes are here. This shop was not only remote but also very small. The shop owner was the waitress, the chef, and the boss. The shop owner was old and could not be as busy as when he was young. There were limited customers every day. He wanted to close early today, but he did not expect Jiang Chen to bring Gu Min to eat, so the shop owner made a crab feast. Jiang Chen thanked him in a low voice. The shop owner showed a look of fear and trepidation. Gu Min revealed a doubtful expression. Chin, is it an illusion? Grandpa's store seems to be afraid of you? I can't say I'm afraid, I should say I respect you. Jiang Chen's expression was calm as she said, I saw wrongly. The old man just looked stern. The shop owner who had just walked to the door. No one knew that the grandfather of the owner of this restaurant used to be an imperial chef who was in charge of the empress's meals. However, it didn't take long for the empress to establish a constitution, which reduced the number of people in the palace even further. The shop owner grandpa then started his own business. After a few decades, a young man brought the then crown prince out of the palace for a stroll. He came across this small restaurant again and tasted the dishes of the palace. Only after learning about the history of this restaurant did he understand the origins of this place. Jiang Chen had come here twice with her parents when she was young, so the owner knew who she was. Even though he had lost the right to control the life and death of the country, he still retained his dignity. Ordinary people were still very respectful of the crown prince. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Jiang Chen happily paid the bill. Are you feeling much better now? Gu Min had made a fool of herself in class and cried when she came back. Jiang Chen couldn't stand it anymore, so she invited her to dinner. There was no sorrow that a good meal couldn't solve. If there was, then 2 meals would do. Gu Min said embarrassedly, I'm much better now. Jiang Chen said, you can change your major after a while. Gu Min's college entrance examination scores weren't low, but Tianhua University was one of the top institutions of higher learning in the country. The admission requirements were so high that it made people feel hopeless. Because her scores weren't high enough for her preferred major, Gu Min could only comply with the adjustment and enter Tianhua University's history department. Gu Min wasn't cut out for history. Her understanding of history was limited to a variety of television dramas, and she often misremembered names and events. The joke of the day was that Gu Min had falsely attributed 2 famous historical events to someone else. Gu Min scratched her head and said reluctantly, if I change my major, will I not be able to stay in the same dormitory as you? Jiang Chen asked her, are you going to give up on changing your major just to stay in the same dormitory as me? It's not like I can't. My major in university won't affect my future work. Gu Min sighed and muttered, my mom's martial arts school, my dad's paper company, my grandparents' huge collection of antiques. Anyway, after graduation, I'll go back to inherit the family business. Choosing a major in university won't affect my future work. If that's the case, staying in the history department is actually quite good. Actually, my future work intention is to be a scriptwriter. If I want to be a scriptwriter, I need to have some knowledge. After saying a lot, Gu Min asked Jiang Chen. Chin, what do you plan to do in the future? Jiang Chen said, open an entertainment company. Huh? Open an entertainment company? To promote my brother, Jiang Chen said. If I don't work hard to make him famous, he can only go back to inherit the family business. My future career was decided when I was born, but he can still do what he likes. If he likes acting, then he can do it. Gu Min was speechless. It sounded inexplicably desolate. Chin is a good sister. I think so too, Jiang Chen said. I don't approve of him going to that kind of place. The entertainment industry isn't clean. In order to fight for this opportunity, his mother and father almost broke his legs when he was young, but he was too stubborn. He said that even if his legs were broken, he would still crawl over. Listen to what he's saying. He's so stubborn, so I can only let him be. Gu Min said, from what you said, Chen's family is more conservative. When Jiang Chen mentioned his parents, he always used father and mother, and never used the more colloquial father and mother. They are indeed quite conservative. That's why my brother said he wanted to be an actor, and that's why he was beaten up so badly. Even if he won the title of the youngest best actor and had the potential to win a Grand Slam, it was still very embarrassing for the royal family to produce an actor. After 100 years, he might even be beaten up by his ancestors. Gu Min smiled and said, when I go back, I'm going to find out which handsome young man with the surname Jiang in the entertainment industry and add him as a fan. Everyone in the family is against him becoming an actor, and there are many arguments about this. Jiang Chen sighed. His surname isn't Jiang. He took my father's surname. That kid went from child star to best actor without using any of his family's connections. He would probably have to wait until he reappeared in the public eye as a prince of the royal family before everyone would know his true identity. I'm very curious. Since Chen Chen's family is so conservative, why would your brother want to be an actor? Jiang Chen said, the more my mother is against something, the more tempted he is. Every time, he's on the verge of breaking his leg. After all these years, he didn't break his leg. It was probably because the spirits of his ancestors in heaven were protecting him. Gu Min and this roommate of hers had a very good relationship. The two of them would always go shopping together during the holidays. The only way to solve my worries is to get rich quickly. Looking at her rapidly shrinking wallet, Gu Min looked at the big and small bags that she had bought on impulse and revealed a melancholic expression. Jiang Chen held a cup of milk tea and said with a smile, "It's okay. I'll support you in the cafeteria for the rest of the month." Tianhua University's cafeteria was considered good and cheap. Students could eat their fill with just 10 yuan or so. If they wanted to eat better, a meal would cost about 40 to 50 yuan. If they wanted to eat individual stir-fried dishes, a meal of 4 dishes would cost more than 100 yuan. Many students would only be extravagant at birthday parties. Gu Min said, "Don't. I'm a big eater. Aren't you afraid that I'll eat you poor?" Jiang Chen drank the rest of the milk tea in one breath and threw the empty bottle into the trash can 2 meters away. "If you can eat me poor, I'm afraid you'll have to be a glutton." Gu Min silently applauded her friend. Society, society. Does a tycoon's thigh need a pendant? Baby, hang it wherever you point. Seeing Gu Min's cheeky expression, Jiang Chen could not help but smile. You're taking advantage of me and you're still pretending. You should reflect on yourself. Don't be a starlight person every month and spend a month's worth of living expenses in a week. Gu Min said gloomily, "Sigh, buying and buying is the happiest thing in life. If I don't even have this little fun, what's the point of living? Baby's biggest wish is to start a business and become a tycoon. In the future, I'll drink 1 cup of milk tea and throw the other one away." Jiang Chen was amused. "You just said a while ago that you wanted to be a scriptwriter." Gu Min retorted, "There's no conflict between being a scriptwriter and a business tycoon. If I write a popular script and film it into a TV series, I'll be rich in the future. Won't I be a tycoon then? Even a salted fish has a dream. Chen, don't be cruel and burst my dream." Jiang Chen was about to say something when she heard some noise from the wireless earphones on her ears. Her expression darkened a little. "What's wrong?" Gu Min packed up the big and small bags. She did not feel anything when she bought them, but now she wished she had 3 heads and 6 arms. Jiang Chen quietly glanced in a certain direction from the corner of her eyes. She did not see anyone suspicious. "Nothing. My legs suddenly went numb. It's a little uncomfortable." Gu Min put down the bags and let Jiang Chen sit on the public bench. "Come, give me your legs. I'll massage them for you. It's an ancestral massage technique. I guarantee you'll feel better in a while." Gu Min's mother's martial arts school was also inherited from her grandparents. There were often conflicts. When Gu Min was young, she had suffered a lot in practicing martial arts. After so many years of stumbling, she slowly mastered the art of brewing medicinal wine and massaging. Jiang Chen smiled faintly, but there was some doubt in her heart. Ever since she and Gu Min became roommates, Jiang Chen's secret guard reported that the two of them were often monitored. However, the person's whereabouts were extremely secretive. Even if the secret guard fought with him, it would not be easy. At first, Jiang Chen thought that the person was after her. After all, she was the heir to the royal family and the future young empress. It was hard to guarantee that there would be people with more extreme political leanings who would attack her. However, after the secret guard probed and investigated, he was shocked to find that the person was after Gu Min. Jiang Chen secretly became suspicious. She sent people to investigate Gu Min since she was young, but nothing unusual was found. The person who followed Gu Min was also very strange. He did not have any intention of harming her. Instead, he seemed to be a Miss Tian Luo. There was one time when Gu Min had stomach problems. Jiang Chen had classes in the afternoon. When she returned, Gu Min thanked her for ordering stomach medicine and lunch. At the beginning of the month, Gu Min's period came. It was only when she went to class that she realized something was wrong. When she went to the toilet, she found that there was an extra pack of soft little angels in her school bag. Because it was Jiang Chen's favorite brand, Gu Min thought that it was Jiang Chen who prepared it. There were some things that Jiang Chen had done, but there were some things that Miss Tian Luo had framed her. Min, I want to ask you something. Jiang Chen felt very comfortable in her calves. She was even more curious. Gu Min's family background was very good. Her ancestors were also small officials. Other than that, there was nothing special about her. Why would that mysterious Miss Tian Luo have her eyes on her? This matter had to be clarified. Only by knowing the real purpose of this Miss Tian Luo could she be at ease. Chin, ask away. Are your legs still numb? It's okay. They're much better. Jiang Chen probed. Have you noticed that there's something strange around you? For example, are there any familiar people who are always wandering around? To be honest, I've seen them a few times, but they're very elusive. It doesn't seem very safe. A strange place and familiar people? I don't think so. Gu Min thought carefully and said uncertainly, if you really want to talk about strange things, there should be one. When I was young, I went to a kindergarten for the rich. The parents of the children there were very well off. One time, there was a kidnapping case. I was accidentally injured and taken away. The next day, the kidnappers died on the rooftop. I don't know who did it. Jiang Chen also found out about this kidnapping case. Because the police couldn't find any clues, they could only close the case in a hurry. Until today, they still didn't know who killed the kidnappers. But after calculating the time, Jiang Chen felt that this person shouldn't be Miss Tian Luo. According to the investigation of the hidden guards, Miss Tian Luo was a skinny man who was about 1.85 meters tall. According to the skin condition of his palm that was exposed during the fight, he should be between 20 to 35 years old. At this age, it was impossible for him to be the person who killed the kidnappers. Other than that, is there anything else? Gu Min pretended to be resentful. I'm just an ordinary civilian. How could I have encountered anything special? Tianhua University was the top university in the country. Even first-year students were very busy with their studies. Unknowingly, a spring and autumn had passed. In the second year of university, a very young professor was transferred to the history department. This person's name was very strange. His surname was Liu, and his name was Shi. When he introduced his name to the students in the lecture hall, many students covered their mouths and snickered. Why was that? The second year of university focused on the history of the 5 kingdoms and the early days of the Jiang dynasty. Who was Liu Shi? He was the famous father of Emperor Qin in official history. Although Emperor Qin didn't approve of him, Cheng Cheng, who recorded history, did. Who is Cheng Cheng? He specialized in compiling the history of the 16 kingdoms, the Xia dynasty, and the Jiang dynasty. He spent 35 years restoring countless ancient books. He was the imperial scribe, and after his death, he was conferred the title of first scribe. Cheng Cheng recorded history like this, but Emperor Qin didn't reprimand him. It was obvious that he had tacitly approved of this part. Even though there were many unofficial histories, the official history that students saw was still Liu Shi, courtesy name Zhongqing, the father of Emperor Qin. He lived in Hejian. He was dissolute when he was young and he was a playboy. Even the father of Emperor Qin, Cheng Cheng, was not polite about Liu Shi. Every word he said was a scumbag. Almost all students who studied history knew him. Liu Shi was a piece of trash, but he had a daughter who changed the world. Because he had the same name, Professor Liu Shi was secretly called a scumbag by the students. Liu Shi was very young. He looked like he was in his late 20s. He was gentle, good-looking, and had a refined and outstanding temperament. The students gave him the nickname Scumbag, but Liu Shi wasn't a scumbag. On the contrary, he kept his chastity and wouldn't easily be alone with female students. If a female student pursued him, he would reject them without hesitation. I'm sorry, I already have a sweetheart. I'm planning to get married next year, but I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. Many girls' hearts were broken by this answer. Many girls could only wish Lu Shi and his fiancée a lifetime of happiness with tears. It was strange. Although Lu Shi always said he had a sweetheart, none of the students had ever seen the girl visit Lu Shi. It was Lu Shi's class that day. As the most handsome student in the history department, many students came because of his reputation. The lecture hall was full. However, not all students would be seduced by his beauty. Gu Min was one of them. She was sealed by the quilt in the dormitory and didn't want to go to class, so she asked Jiang Chen to sign in. She didn't expect Lu Shi to find out. Lu Shi smiled and asked Jiang Chen to pass the message. It's not good to skip class. Please ask Gu Min to explain after class. If she's sick, please ask her to bring the doctor's certificate. In order not to deduct her credits at the end of the term, Gu Min could only bite the bullet and talk to Lu Shi to see if he could make an exception. Lu Shi looked very serious when he was angry, and Gu Min was most afraid of this kind of person. Lu Shi, as a professor, couldn't be too harsh when a student came to ask for mercy, but he still gave Gu Min an ultimatum. If you promise not to be absent from class from now until the end of the term, I can consider forgiving you for skipping class. Gu Min wanted to say something but stopped. She could only agree with a bitter face and repeatedly promised that she wouldn't skip class again. Professor Lu, I know I was wrong. I won't do it again. Gu Min wished she could point 3 fingers at the sky and swear. Lu Shi smiled meaningfully. I believe that Gu Min has a heart of repentance. I believe that you won't let me down. Gu Min nodded quickly. From now on, turn over a new leaf. Study hard and make progress every day. Gu Min assured Lu Shi. As soon as she stepped out of the office, her shoulders drooped and she looked listless. Back in the dormitory, Jiang Chen saw Gu Min's lifeless face. I've already signed in for you, but Professor Lu Shi seems to know you. He saw whether you came or not. Jiang Chen deeply sympathized with her. It wasn't that she didn't want to help her roommate. It was just that her roommate was unlucky to meet a serious professor like Lu Shi. Which university student hadn't skipped class or skipped school? Even Tianhua University's students were the same. Gu Min's mouth twitched. I don't think so. I didn't say hello to him. The girl next door also skipped class. She's fine. Jiang Chen shrugged. She didn't know how Lu Shi noticed. The lecture hall was very big. Usually, it could accommodate 200 students. University was different from middle school and high school. The contact between teachers and students was limited to short class interactions. As a professor, it was impossible for Lu Shi to remember every student's face and name. How did he find out? For the sake of your credits and final grades, you should be more careful. You can't skip Lu Shi's class. Gu Min looked sad. Is it too late to change my major? Jiang Chen smiled. It's too late. During the second class, Shi and Jiang Chen finally understood why Lu Shi remembered Gu Min. Lu Shi talked about the topic of his recent research. It was about the mystery of the identity of Emperor Chen's mother. Historians believed that it was Gu Zhen, but Lu Shi believed that it was not Gu Zhen, but someone else. In order to support this point of view, Lu Shi found a lot of materials. Jiang Chen, as the heir to the royal family, was stunned. Nonsense. He's just playing to the gallery, Gu Min muttered. Who else could it be if it wasn't Gu Zhen? He actually guessed that it was Gu Zhen's elder sister? Because of Emperor Chen, there were only a few records of her blood relatives, regardless of whether they were male or female. Later generations could only peek through history books. Jiang Chen coughed softly and muttered to herself. It might not be nonsense. This content was history to outsiders, but to Jiang Chen, it was a family tree. She had to memorize it when she was very young. Of course, Jiang Chen had learned about the mystery of Emperor Chen's mother from the books left behind by her ancestors. After all, this period of history was too disgraceful. They could not possibly say that Lu Shi had defiled Gu Min, who was born with dementia, and that Gu Zhen had married Lu Shi with the fetus in Gu Min's womb. She was an ancestor after all. She had to keep the last layer of cover. When they heard Lu Shi prove the name of Emperor Chen's mother, a few of her classmates looked at Gu Min strangely. Gu Min couldn't help but explode. Why are you looking at me? It's just the same name. Lu Shi is also a famous scumbag in history. Why don't you go and see him? Jiang Chen held back her laughter. It's probably because of this that Professor Lu Shi pays more attention to you. Knowing that there was a student named Gu Min in his class, Lu Shi would definitely pay attention to her. Naturally, he would know that Gu Min had skipped class. Gu Min rested her chin on her hand and complained, "I'm so unlucky. Chin, how dare you laugh at me? Don't you love me anymore?" Jiang Chen laughed. "Why would I? I've always loved you the most." Gu Min blew a kiss at her. She said playfully, Chin is indeed true love. Jiang Chen couldn't help but laugh. She copied her action and blew a kiss. Mwax. Little did they know that the young professor at the podium saw the interaction between the two of them. The chalk in his hand was crushed into several pieces. Jiang Pingji's descendants, they were indeed of the same bloodline. An eyesore. Jiang Chen seemed to feel something. She glanced at the podium and found that Lu Shi was lecturing with a smile on his face. There was no flaw in his act. Gu Min had been targeted by Lu Shi. She couldn't skip class, and he liked to ask her to speak in class. For the sake of credits, Gu Min could only grit her teeth and go back to the dorm to curse Lu Shi. If it weren't for Chin, I would definitely change my major and stay away from Lu Shi. Gu Min's acting was poor. She hung half of her body on Jiang Chen. She did everything she could to act cute, which made Lu Shi even more upset. "How old are you? Why are you still calling me a baby?" Gu Min looked heartbroken. "Didn't we agree to be each other's babies? You think I'm old now, don't you?" Jiang Chen sighed. She couldn't do anything to the mischievous Gu Min. Many college students were night owls. Gu Min and Jiang Chen were typical examples. However, the former was addicted to TV shows and had a profound cultivation ability. The latter was always holding a super thick book and reading late into the night. Gu Min had always teased herself. She said that it was easy to become immortal if one was too powerful. She always used this to persuade Jiang Chen to sleep early and wake up early. In the end, Jiang Chen didn't ascend, but she did. Please remember this book's domain name. Jiutian Shenhuang mobile version website. Chapter 1867. As a famous noble clan in Langya County, the Gu clan had many members and many famous scholars. They were very famous in the royal court. This was the Gu clan in the eyes of outsiders. However, the Gu clan in Gu Min's eyes was different. The etiquette was complicated, and the atmosphere was heavy. Everything was so heavy that one could not breathe. Everyone in the Gu residence knew that the First Lady had caught a cold after falling into the water. She had just returned from the gates of hell after much difficulty. However, after she woke up, her temperament had changed drastically. The old master and madam suspected that some evil spirit had gotten close to the First Lady and secretly invited a few esteemed monks to take a look. In the end, they were told that the First Lady's lost soul had returned. Perhaps it was a blessing in disguise. Now, her mind was much more mature than other children her age. Indeed, everyone in Langya County knew that the eldest daughter of the Gu clan's first wife was a fool. If she had not been born in a noble clan, she would have been abandoned long ago. If the clan did not have some spare cash, how could they afford to raise a girl with a lost soul? First Lady, don't ever go near the pool again. If anything happens, this servant will be punished. When the maidservant saw Gu Min sneaking closer to the pool again, she was so frightened that she turned pale. She wished that she could kneel beside Gu Min and beg her. Gu Min retracted her leg in embarrassment. Her childish face, which was faintly tinged with green, revealed some reluctance. "Never mind. Get up. I won't go near it." Only then did the maidservant get up. Afraid that Gu Min would regret it, she led her away from the pool in the courtyard. As Gu Min walked, she turned her head and saw some tools beside the pool. When she thought about what she heard in the morning, she felt confused. I just heard someone say that father and mother are going to send people to fill up the pool? After filling up the pool, she really did not know how to go back. With this thought, the confusion in Gu Min's eyes deepened. A few days ago, Gu Min cultivated until 3 in the morning before sleeping. As she felt sleepy, she vaguely felt a sharp pain in her chest. When she woke up, she discovered that she was no longer in a university dormitory. Instead, she was in an ancient lady's chamber. A group of unfamiliar women surrounded her, chattering like there were tens of thousands of ducks. Gu Min felt very strange. One moment, she felt cold like she had fallen into an ice cave. The next moment, she felt hot like she was being roasted on a grill. Soon, she fainted again. When he woke up again, he was still in that strange room. She was shocked to find that she had turned into a 5- or 6-year-old girl. When she opened her mouth to speak, not only was the maid serving the little girl not pleasantly surprised, she even screamed and staggered away to call for help. Later, he found out that the girl was mentally retarded. She couldn't speak or recognize people. She could only drool and couldn't control her bowels and urine. Gu Min was very worried that she would be regarded as a demon and burned to death. Fortunately, the eminent monks she invited all said that she was a lost soul that had returned and was not possessed by a demon. The girl's parents also accepted the monks' explanation, and they loved Gu Min even more. For the sake of her own life, Gu Min could only swallow her words and explain herself. She stayed quiet for 2 days. After she recovered from the cold, she was allowed to move around in a small area. Her parents, relatives, and friends were all 300 years in the future. Gu Min was like a lonely soul in this strange era. She tried to find a way back, and from time to time, she would sneak into the pond where the girl had fallen into the water to take a look. The maid discovered her intentions and was afraid that something would happen to her again, so she could only keep an eye on her at all times. However, if Gu Min wanted to find a chance, how could these maids stop her? On the 7th night of her transmigration, Gu Min secretly jumped into the pond. The movement of falling into the water attracted the servants who were patrolling the night watch, and she was fished out again. "My daughter, how could you be so cruel to leave your parents?" Gu Min stared blankly at the strange woman, and suddenly felt a little ashamed. No matter what, she had occupied the body of the woman's daughter, and even used this body to commit self-harm. It was indeed wrong. But she wanted to go home. She missed her parents, grandparents, and Chin. She missed the university, the dormitory, and the annoying classes. Gu Min had always been optimistic, but at this moment, she couldn't help but cry, and big tears dripped from her eyes. "I want to go home, I miss home." Mother Gu also cried uncontrollably. "My daughter, your parents are here, and your home is here. Where do you want to go?" Although this daughter was mentally retarded, Mother Gu never despised her. She spent energy and effort on her, and she loved her very much. Finally, the lost soul came back, and her daughter became normal again, but she still wanted to go home and leave them. Hearing this, Gu Min cried even harder. She remembered clearly that when she fell asleep, she felt a faint pain in her chest, and she felt weak all over. She probably died suddenly from staying up late. This meant that even if she found a way to go back, she probably wouldn't be able to. After crying for more than 2 hours, Gu Min nestled in Mother Gu's arms and fell into a deep sleep. When she woke up the next day, her nose was blocked and her throat was hoarse. Even though she had given up, it still took her half a month to accept reality. Gu Min carefully tested the maid who served the girl, and used her limited historical knowledge to speculate about the dynasty she was in. The result was surprising. She had transmigrated to more than 300 years ago, and there were still 30 to 40 years before the chaos of the 5 kingdoms. Why is it this dynasty? Gu Min's little face scrunched up. Even if it was 30 to 40 years later, it would be fine. If she was in the same era as Emperor Qin, Gu Min would be more balanced, or if she transmigrated to the dynasty under Emperor Qin, and it happened to be before the chaos of the 5 kingdoms. Even if Gu Min didn't have a good record in history, she knew how terrible this period was for women. Women were like goods. No matter how high their social status was, they were just goods of a higher class. Accustomed to the convenience of modern society, Gu Min couldn't adapt to this backward era. Mother Gu and Father Gu could also see her uneasiness, and they tried their best to satisfy their daughter's needs. As long as she didn't seek death, everything would be fine. For safety's sake, Mother Gu sent people to fill up the pond and change it into a martial arts field. Yes, a martial arts field. Gu Min found an excuse and said that she wanted to practice martial arts. After strengthening her body, she would spend more time with her parents. After acting coquettishly, she finally persuaded them to agree. How can I live without martial arts? Gu Min learned martial arts from a martial arts master. On the surface, she was learning ordinary external martial arts, but she was secretly learning the technique of physical training. Emperor Chen, please forgive me. In order to survive, I will practice the technique of physical training first. I will definitely not steal the copyright of your creation. The technique of physical training originated from Emperor Chen, Jiangpingji. It was said that she had specially created it for women, and there were many benefits to practicing it. History also proved this. The rise of women's status could not go unnoticed because of the technique of physical training. From the establishment of the Jiang dynasty to the modern era, it had always been compulsory for girls at the age of 5 or 6. According to scientific research, the technique of physical training could not only improve a woman's physical fitness, but it could also improve her genes. Children born with it would be smart and healthy, and congenital deformities would be reduced. As a person from the future, Gu Min naturally knew that the world would not be peaceful for long. As a woman, it was not enough to just have power and status. She also needed absolute strength to protect herself. Otherwise, once the chaotic era came, she would be in a very dangerous situation. Gu Min could not help but shiver when she thought of the depiction of the chaotic era of the 5 kingdoms in the television series. She was very clear about the status of women in the era before the Jiang dynasty. Even if she was a noble lady, once faced with the torrent of chaos, she would not have a good ending. Unless, Gu Min thought about it and decided on a general plan. She wanted to practice martial arts well and try her best to control her fate in her own hands. Perhaps she could even follow Emperor Qin and become a bandit to conquer the world in the future. Gu Min came from a martial arts family. Her mother had been the national champion for 3 consecutive years when she was young. In order for Gu Min to inherit the family's martial arts school and the martial arts school, her mother had been beating and training Gu Min from the moment she could walk. As the foundation of all martial arts, the art of body tempering was naturally the most important thing. It had long been engraved in her bones. In this life, she had regained her foundation. She also had the experience of her previous life, so she learned very quickly. The effect of learning martial arts was very obvious. The originally thin and pale girl had become much fatter in a short 3 months. She was very likable. The martial arts teacher was also secretly shocked. This noble lady of the Gu family showed signs of natural divine strength at such a young age. She was really a good seedling to learn martial arts. What a pity, Gu Min was a woman and a noble lady of a noble family. She only practiced martial arts to strengthen her body, not to charge and break through enemy lines like a man. The potential of this innate divine strength was probably going to be wasted. Thinking of this, the martial arts teacher sighed with regret. Many years later, he would still feel regret. When everything was going in a good direction, Gu Min had something on her mind. She had been depressed for a long time because of it. Finally, Gu Min found her chance. She took advantage of the opportunity when her mother took her to Hejian County to visit relatives and secretly went to the rumored effective Xianxia temple to visit the master. Such Denxin Qi. What kind of monster are you? Gu Min pretended to be troubled and stared at the Buddha statue in the Xianxia temple. Suddenly, she heard a stranger's voice coming from behind. She turned her head and saw a middle-aged monk in a kasaya standing in the corridor. His eyes were burning with a bit of frightening light. I am here to visit the master. There are some things. Gu Min inexplicably felt a bit guilty. She did not dare to look at the monk directly. She felt that his eyes were shining and piercing her eyes. Besides, this monk could tell that she had a strong yin qi at a glance. Could it be that he also knew that she was reincarnated? Thinking of this, Gu Min struggled in her heart. Finally, she made up her mind. May I know how to address you, master? She gathered her courage and looked straight into his eyes. The middle-aged monk said, You can call me Liaochen. I am not a master. I am just a nameless monk here. Master Liaochen. Gu Min bowed slightly. Her eyes were a bit complicated. She probed, Master, do you see any clues? I have calculated. You should have died early. You died at the beginning of June. It is surprising that you are still alive. Liaochen said honestly, your soul is very strange. There are signs of it leaving your body. You should not live for long, but you... Before he finished, Liaochen shook his head in confusion. It seemed that he had never seen such a special situation. At first, he thought that it was an evil spirit that took over her body. But after a closer look, he realized that Gu Min's soul was clear and pure. She did not look like an evil person. Actually, you are right. Gu Min felt bitter. She said, I am here today to set up a memorial tablet for someone. For who? Gu Min thought for a while and said, this person's name is Gu Min. The girl's name was exactly the same as hers. After donating money, Liaochen helped her set up a memorial tablet for Gu Min so that she could enjoy the worship of the temple. Master, can you tell where I come from? Gu Min probed. Liaochen said, I can't tell clearly, but I am sure that you are not from this world. You are not a bad person and you are not evil. Gu Min seemed to have found someone who understood her. The depression that had accumulated in her heart finally had an outlet. However, she only vaguely said some things. She did not reveal anything related to history. What do you plan to do? Gu Min pinched her fingers and frowned. Her expression was filled with grievance and confusion. I want to go home. I miss my parents and friends, Liaochen said gently. Although my skills are shallow, I can tell that you have reached the end of your lifespan in your previous life. Gu Min looked distressed. She was not surprised by this answer. She always thought that she was far away from becoming an immortal. She did not expect that she had really ascended. What do you plan to do in the future? Liaochen was not afraid that Gu Min was a person who had reincarnated. Instead, he gently asked her about her plans. Gu Min said, What plans can I have? Liaochen said, The yin qi around you is very thick. If you do not find a way to get rid of it, I am afraid you will not have long to live. If I don't want to die, can I still live? A bad life was better than a good death. Although this era was a pain in the ass, she would be able to see Emperor Chen in 20 to 30 years. Her life would not be in vain. Gu Min felt very conflicted. On one hand, she wanted to live, but on the other hand, she was extremely uncomfortable with this era. Of course you can. Just let me perform a ritual. Gu Min sighed like an old man. Thank you, Master. Liaochen said, You and I are fated. You don't have to thank me. Although it is a sinister thing to take over a physical body, you also have a good fate. He personally performed a ritual for Gu Min. She did not know if it was a psychological effect. After the ritual, she felt warm, as if she was nestled in a heating room in the middle of winter. After leaving Xianxia Temple, Gu Min leaned on the black lacquered wooden table and closed her eyes to rest. If you are tired, why don't you take a rest? The servant girl who was kneeling on the side suggested gently. Gu Min muttered, The carriage is so bumpy. My bones are about to fall apart. How can I rest? The carriages in this era did not have any effective shock absorbers. Even if the coachman was careful, the bumpy ride was still disgusting. Gu Min did not get carsick. However, after sitting in ancient carriages for a few times, she also got carsick. I almost vomited my bile from the shock, Gu Min complained in a low voice. Just as she finished speaking, the carriage suddenly stopped. She could not help but lean forward and almost fell. What happened? Don't you know that it will hurt you easily? The servant girl saw Gu Min's pale face and shouted at the coachman. The coachman apologized profusely. He said, It was not my intention. It was because someone was blocking the way. Gu Min frowned. She got up from the mat and bent down to open the curtain of the carriage. The servant girl was shocked. It's okay. Gu Min stopped the servant girl. She only saw what happened outside after she got out of the carriage. It turned out that they were at the bend of the mountain road. Someone's carriage was parked at the bend. The coachman did not see it because of the angle. When he saw it, the two carriages were already very close to each other. The coachman had to tighten the reins to force the horses to stop. Gu Min did not wait for the servant girl to prepare the carriage stool. She held the carriage with one hand and jumped down. Her childish face looked a bit serious. She had good eyesight and could easily see what happened to the carriages in front of her. The coachman went forward to negotiate, hoping that the other party would avoid the road and let them go first. However, the other party was rude and unreasonable. The rich young Lang Jun slightly raised his chin and directly lashed out with the long whip in his hand. The coachman dodged in time, but his nose was still hit by the whip. Seeing that the coachman dodged, the young Lang Jun said arrogantly, "Lu is cleaning the house. Can't you see it with your dog eyes?" "Whose dog eyes are you talking about?" With her excellent hearing, Gu Min heard this and immediately became angry. She brushed away the hand of the maid who was trying to stop her and strode forward aggressively. As the saying goes, a good dog doesn't stand in the way. What are your intentions by blocking this place in such a majestic manner? This is the bend of the mountain road. If the carriage is not controlled well, it will either collide with you or fall off the cliff. Who are you calling a dog? The handsome young Lang Jun was blocked by Gu Min's words. He was so angry that his face almost turned red. "Of course I'm calling you. Not only are you a dog, but you are also immoral. Naughty boy, how did the adults in your family teach you such a lousy upbringing?" Gu Min did not want to bully children. However, in the face of such a mean boy, if she did not teach him a lesson, he would really think that he was the king. The young Lang Jun was so angry that his eyes turned red. Without saying anything, he swung the whip in his hand towards Gu Min's face. The few servant girls who served Gu Min were so scared that their faces turned pale. Only Gu Min's face was cold. She raised her hand and held the whip tightly in her hand. She exerted force with her wrist and pulled the shocked young Lang Jun to the ground. His body was dragged for a distance, and his face was covered with dirt. You bully me." The young Lang Jun let go of the whip. His handsome face was scratched on the ground, and he felt a burning pain. "First you hurt me. Then, you used the whip when you couldn't win. Now you've been killed, and you even know how to complain first." Gu Min snatched the whip and looked down at the young Lang Jun. She said coldly, "As I said, good dogs don't block the road. Make way for your carriage team." The young Lang Jun was so scared that his eyes turned red and watery. He stood up in a sitting position and looked at Gu Min. "You bully me." Gu Min said, "Because you're useless." The young Lang Jun said angrily, "I've never seen a woman as vulgar as you." "Haven't I seen it now?" Gu Min said sharply, "I've also never seen someone as shameless as you. You block the mountain road and kill people. You whip people for no reason. Do you really think you're the king? If I wasn't in a good mood today, I would have beaten your face." The young Lang Jun was angry. He said to the servants behind him, "Catch this girl." Gu Min also said, "Humph, do you think you're the only one who brought people?" The two families confronted each other. The servant advised, "Second Lang Jun, it's more important to find your wife. If we delay, we won't be able to catch the kidnapper." When the young Lang Jun heard this, he suppressed the anger in his heart angrily. He glared at Gu Min, took a deep breath and said, "I'm not going to argue with a little girl like you." Gu Min snorted coldly. She heard the servant's words and asked, "Did you lose someone in your family?" The young Lang Jun thought that Gu Min had some clues. He didn't care about being angry and hurriedly said, "Have you seen her?" "I heard your servant say something about a kidnapper." Gu Min guessed that the young Lang Jun was so impolite because he lost his cousin. The anger in her heart was greatly extinguished. She was a righteous and warm-hearted person. She hated human traffickers who abducted women and children the most. Seeing the young Lang Jun's anxious look, she couldn't help but sympathize with him. "Tell me what she looks like. I'll send someone to keep an eye on her." The young Lang Jun looked up and glanced at Gu Min. He muttered, "I don't need your fake sympathy." After saying this, he ordered the carriage to move to a corner and made way for Gu Min's carriage to pass. What a bad temper. Gu Min glanced at the young Lang Jun's carriage and found that there was a willow leaf-shaped family emblem engraved on the outside of the carriage. The servant whispered in her ear, The Lu family of Hejin. Gu Min frowned slightly. She seemed to be surprised. The Lu family of Hejin? Wasn't that Empress Chen's family? Even though Empress Chen's surname was Jiang, everyone knew that she was from the Lu family of Hejin. She left the clan at the age of 12 and changed her surname. The servant thought that Gu Min was curious, so she explained to her. Yes, it's the Lu family of Hejin that my aunt's cousin married. Cousin? Gu Min didn't know this part at all. She just echoed, there seems to be such a part. The mother of Gu Min's current body had a cousin who was not married yet. This cousin married to Hejin County and became the wife of the eldest son of the first branch of the Lu family. Now she was also the mother of the family. The servant continued, look at that young Longjuan's carriage, family emblem, clothes, and age. He's most likely a direct descendant of the Lu family. Gu Min said, anyway, it has nothing to do with me. He was in the wrong first. I'm not afraid even if he goes to complain. The servant smiled. The Lu family only has a little reputation in Hejin County. A bunch of direct descendants are not as important as my aunt. If the young Langjun really went to complain, he would most likely be forced by his parents to apologize to Gu Min. Gu Min said helplessly, forget it. I don't want to compare myself with this kind of naughty child. At such a young age, he threw a whip at others. Gu Min's body was only 6 years old, but he still had the heart to do it. How could he be merciful? To put it bluntly, this was called evil. However, I'm more worried about his cousin. From what he said, it seems that she was kidnapped. In Gu Min's era, human trafficking was still rampant, and human trafficking was rampant. The better ones were sold deep in the mountains and forests. The worse ones were tortured until they became disabled and begged everywhere. The worse ones were directly used as living targets to supply organs. In this ignorant and backward ancient times, children who were abducted would not have a good ending, especially girls. It was not bad if they were abducted and sold as child brides. The unluckier ones would be sold to brothels and stuck in the mud for the rest of their lives. Thinking of this, Gu Min showed a look of pity. Tell them to go out and pay attention to any suspicious people and girls on the road. That young Langjun was quite annoying, but it was better to save his cousin if possible. Gu Min had always been lucky. Since she was a child, she had been the lucky fish in the eyes of her relatives and classmates. She could win a small prize in any lottery ticket. Her good luck had continued until now. There was still a quarter of an hour before they entered the city. She heard something with her sharp ears. Stop! Gu Min lifted the curtain of the carriage and asked, did someone pass by us just now? The servant who was guarding the carriage said, there was a farmer couple with a cattle. Because the cattle smelled too strong and they were afraid of offending Gu Min, they avoided it. Gu Min said, which direction did they go? The servant was puzzled. To the south. Gu Min said, go after them. I heard a child crying. It seemed to be a girl. Chapter 1868. Everyone looked at each other. They didn't see the girl, let alone the sound of a girl crying. Gu Min was furious and scolded, hurry up and catch up with them. The body refining technique could greatly enhance the 5 senses, but her hearing in her previous life wasn't so abnormal. This was a golden finger of rebirth. Yes. The servant didn't dare to disobey. He took a few people and rode after the farmer couple. After a while, he caught them. First lady, I've brought them back. The servant cupped the couple's hands behind their back and forced them to kneel on the mud covered with stones. The couple looked ordinary. Their skin was dark brown after years of exposure to the sun. They were afraid of the servant and the magnificent carriage, so they trembled and didn't dare to make a sound. Gu Min jumped off the carriage and walked straight towards the aged cow. The couple revealed a look of fear. What do you want? Fear flashed in the farmer woman's eyes. Her big yellow teeth were still covered with vegetable leaves. She looked mean but weak at heart. Seeing that Gu Min did not stop, she made up her mind and scolded, where did this little bitch come from? You want to rob. Just as she was about to scold, the servant kicked the farmer woman's back. She fell forward and moaned in pain. Untie the basket. The honest farmer said, my lady, The things in the basket are worthless and smelly. Don't. Before he finished speaking, Gu Min picked up a stone and accurately hit the farmer's left face. The force was so strong that the smell of iron came out of his mouth. Shut them up. The servant quickly found some rags to cover their mouths. At the same time, the basket on the cow's back was untied. Gu Min pushed away all the things on the basket and found a girl in a pink dress curled up at the bottom. The other basket contained a 13 or 14-year-old boy. The boy seemed to have fainted. His dry lips were chapped. Gu Min asked the servant to dig out the boy. She bent down and picked up the girl. Look at this boy. If he's dead, bury him. If he's still alive, save his life. The servant obeyed and found that the youth's body was covered with bruises, and both of his legs were broken. The couple were very excited, as if Gu Min was the evil person who robbed their son and daughter-in-law. In fact, that was the case. The young man was the son they had just bought to carry on the family line, and the girl was the daughter-in-law they had abducted to be the child bride of their son. When Gu Min heard the couple say that they couldn't have another child, that they would end their family line, that they had let down their ancestors, and that they had to have a son to continue their family line, she sneered and said, "Are you more noble than the royal family? But how many dragon chairs are there waiting for my son to sit on? Come on, with your poor and trashy appearance, the children you give birth to are also trash scum. Continue the family line? How could we face our ancestors? What a joke." The maid was used to filtering out some of Gu Min's strange words. The expert who examined Gu Min had said that she could only return to her body if she was lucky. If she was not careful, her soul might be taken away. Hence, the Gu residence's people did not dare to restrict Gu Min, afraid of breaking a taboo and making her unhappy. "First Lady, how should we deal with this couple?" Gu Min said, "Trash should go wherever it's supposed to go. How can they speak so eloquently about human trafficking? Who gave them face?" The maid was put in a difficult position. Her First Lady's words were too vague, and she did not understand. Hand them over to the authorities? Gu Min thought about it and nodded. It's good to hand them over to the authorities. After all, it is not good to punish them privately. Gu Min carried the girl in pink onto the carriage and got the maid to bring clean water and snacks. "Don't worry. This place is already safe. That couple will not have a good ending," Gu Min said to the girl with a smile. "Do you have a cousin? That person is young, but he has a bad temper and often throws a whip at people. I just saw him on the way." The girl cried until her voice was hoarse. Her eyes were red and swollen, squeezing her large eyes into slits. When Gu Min saw that the girl did not say anything, she took the initiative to say, "I don't know which residence you are from. Why don't I send you to your cousin first?" The girl nodded slightly as she hugged the snacks. She could not help but look at Gu Min from the corner of her eye. Gu Min was only 1 or 2 years older than the girl, but she felt that Gu Min was much more reliable than her cousin and gave her a sense of security. It could be seen that the girl had a good upbringing. Even though she was young, she sat properly and ate properly. She did not make a fuss and was very cute. Gu Min sent someone to chase after the Lu Langjun and his group. They chased at full speed and caught up with them after more than 2 hours. "Shout I, how are you? Are you all right? You scared me to death." The carriage of the Lu family's Langjun was almost racing over. He jumped off the carriage and ran over before the horses and carriages had even stopped. When the girl saw the young Langjun, she pouted her lips and buried her head in Gu Min's arms, turning her back to the Lu Langjun. "Why is it you again?" The young Langjun was embarrassed. His gaze turned to Gu Min's face. "Did you save my cousin?" Gu Min sneered. "If it wasn't me, then who else could it be?" The young Langjun said, "Why do you speak so sarcastically? I have never seen an aristocratic girl with no upbringing like you." Gu Min said, "Family upbringing is directed at the person. You're not." The young Langjun almost fell down. "Why are you calling me an animal?" Gu Min laughed. "When did I say you were an animal? Don't take it personally." The young Langjun was angry and angry. However, Gu Min was the one who saved his cousin, so he had to suppress his anger no matter how big it was. Gu Min asked, "Your cousin is too careless. Why didn't he send someone to keep an eye on her? Why did he let her be taken away? The girl's cousin was so annoying. It was obvious that he was going to be a playboy in the future. When he went out, he would definitely bring guards with him to prevent him from being put in a sack. At this moment, the girl finally reacted. Her voice was already hoarse from crying, so it was very difficult for her to speak. Big sister, this is not my fault. The girl was called by Dai. She was currently staying at her cousin's house. Because of her naughty personality, she often pestered the wet nurse to go out and play. The wet nurse did not take good care of the girl. She often treated the girl perfunctorily. Nothing happened to the girl before, so she was even more careless. This time, she only cared about the rouge and face powder sold by the vendors. She did not even know that the girl had been secretly taken away by the couple. When she found out, the girl had already been carried far away. The wet nurse was afraid that the head of the family would blame her, so she did not report it immediately. Instead, she chose to pack up the gold, silver, and other valuables that she usually kept and prepared to run away. The young Langjun only realized that something was wrong when he was playing with his cousin after school. He brought some people to chase after the wet nurse and blocked her halfway up the mountain. When Gu Min met her little Langjun, he was angrily whipping the wet nurse, making her cry out in pain. When Gu Min knew about this, her impression of the young Langjun improved a little. Although his temper was a little bad, he was still a good brother who loved his sister. His sister-con personality was likable no matter where it was. She quickly suppressed this thought because of the young Langjun's self-introduction. I am Lu Shi. Gu Min did not hear what Lu Shi said after that. The name kept echoing in her mind. This Lu Shi was not the Lu Shi that she knew. He was not Gu Min's university professor. He was the real scumbag Lu Shi in history. The young Langjun felt uncomfortable being stared at by Gu Min. He could not help but blush and said harshly, "Why are you looking at me like that?" Although he was her cousin's savior, her temperament was indeed annoying. How could there be such a vulgar noble lady? Gu Min sneered, "Nothing. You look handsome." Lu Shi could not help but straighten his chest when he heard this. At least you have good taste. You can distinguish between beauty and ugliness. Gu Min suppressed the corner of her mouth and returned the white butterfly to Lu Shi. Scumbags were contagious. She did not want to have any more contact with Lu Shi. Even if Lu Shi was Emperor Chen's biological father, he was also a famous lecher in history. He was a fighter among the scumbags. As the only fan of Emperor Chen, she hated Lu Shi the most in history. The other characters had to be pushed back. Lu Shi was indeed mischievous, but he was not ignorant of other people's eyes. Gu Min did not hide her disgust, so he was angry. Lu Shi was about to leave with his cousin. There was an indescribable grievance on his young face. As the second legitimate son of the Lu family, when had he ever been stared at like this? He was not angry at Gu Min only because she had saved his cousin and because of the family emblem on Gu Min's carriage. Lu Shi was not a dabbler like Gu Min. He knew the family emblem of each family since he was a child. He knew that the children of each family had different styles. Through this, he could determine the other's background and status in the family. Lu Shi could not afford to offend Gu Min. "Cousin, are you angry?" Bai Dai followed Lu Shi into the carriage. She sensed that Lu Shi was in a bad mood. "I didn't do it on purpose." Lu Shi's sitting posture was not standard. He looked very wild and rude. Facing his cute cousin who was in trouble, he restrained himself and said, "This has nothing to do with you. If Xiao Dai wants to go out and play in the future, remember to send someone to tell me. I will send someone to follow you in case the servants don't serve you well again." Bai Dai tilted her head and asked, "Where's the nanny?" Lu Shi sneered, "She died after a few lashes." This kind of lowly servant who has no respect for her superiors should end up like this. He was young, but he had whipped many servants to death. Everyone in the Lu family knew that Lu Erlang was a foppish playboy who did not care about human life. Of course, this was normal in the aristocratic families. The aristocratic families had the right to kill and seize, especially those servants who did not serve them well, played tricks, and framed their masters. The difference was that the servants of other families were directly thrown to the servants and beaten to death, but Lu Shi did it himself. The result was the same, but he gained a different reputation. The foppish playboy Lu Shi was also quite famous in Hejian County. Bai Dai was silent after hearing this. She pouted, obviously disagreeing with Lu Shi's way of handling things. When Lu Shi returned home with Bai Dai, he heard his mother's slightly mean voice as he stepped into the hall. She seemed to be cursing someone. When she saw Lu Shi coming, the ferocious and mean expression on her face did not disappear. "Why did you get off school so late today?" Lu Shi's eyelids drooped slightly. He had long been used to his mother's arbitrary and domineering ways. She wanted to know his whereabouts 24 hours a day. Once he was out of her control, his mother would become hysterical. TSK, this appearance was really ugly. Lu Shi often felt that he was a little too smart in front of his mother. On one hand, he was grateful for his mother's care and pampering, but on the other hand, he despised her attitude from the bottom of his heart. The former came from the bottom of his heart, and the latter couldn't be suppressed. This caused Lu Shi to not really like to be in contact with her. He was afraid that he would not be able to control his disgust and rejection and hurt his mother's heart. "I went out with Xiao Dai to play." Lu Shi suppressed the matter of Bai Dai being kidnapped. He knew his mother's temperament very well. His cousin, Bai Dai, lost her mother at a young age and was not loved by her father. When she was very young, her father kicked her to the Lu residence with the excuse that having a female elder was good for marriage. His mother was also a person who flattered the strong and trampled on the weak. Naturally, she would not like his cousin. If his mother knew that Bai Dai was kidnapped, she would most likely hate her even more. The reason why Bai Dai's wet nurse treated her so disdainfully was more or less because of his mother's indulgence. Mrs. Lu said harshly, "She doesn't know this." "Don't you know this?" Lu Shi said, "Xiao Dai is still young and she is living in the Lu residence as a guest. I am just doing my part as a host." Mrs. Lu said, "She knows how to seduce people at such a young age. She just wants to cling on to you because of the child marriage." Lu Shi's patience was exhausted. He said coldly, "I am tired. I will leave now." Lady Lu already had a belly full of anger. She didn't expect that she would kick an iron plate on her beloved second son. She immediately became furious. Second Lang Jun, Mrs. Lu was also angry today. "Please don't take it to heart." The old nanny who served Mrs. Lu sent Lu Shi out and couldn't help but say something. Angered by someone? Who could anger her? Mrs. Lu's status in Hejian County was not high, but his mother was recognized as the noblest lady in Hejian County. Who could anger her? The old nanny said, "Who else could it be?" Mrs. Lu's cousin, the one who married into the Gu family. Lu Shi understood. His mother had a cousin before she got married. The two of them were equally important in the family. As a noble lady, she had to keep her eyes open for the first time. Marriage was equivalent to her second first time. Her status and honor for the rest of her life would be tied to the husband's family. Because the sexes were quite open, it was normal for unmarried girls to have a lover before marriage. His mother liked a young and handsome scholar when she was still in her boudoir. She even had a rendezvous with him under the moonlight. However, she was born into a big family. She had to cover up her lover before marriage to avoid affecting her reputation. If her reputation was bad, even if she was born into a big family, it would not be easy for her to find a good husband. So his mother had always been careful. However, his mother's cousin was more capable and skillful. When they were discussing marriage, she tricked his mother and let others see her exchanging a token with a scholar. Of course, it was not fatal. At most, it would be a romantic reputation that would affect the status of the marriage. That cousin married into the Gu family because of her good family background and reputation. His mother married into the Lu family in Hejian County. Even though she was also the wife of the Lu family in Hejian County, it was not as glorious as the Gu family in Langi. Lu Shi sneered, "I stayed in the Gu family in Langi. How did I offend you?" The old maid said, "She came to visit us but left out the first lady. It was obvious that she looked down on our poor relatives." They had just said that the first lady looked down on their poor relatives. The next day, the visiting card was sent to the mansion. Lu Shi sat next to his mother. He was surprised to find that the daughter next to his aunt was that sharp-tongued and vulgar girl. He stared at her, but Gu Min ignored him as if nothing had happened. You recognized me just now. Why didn't you admit it? Lu Shi was ordered to entertain Gu Min. He took her to the backyard garden. He did not expect her to be so arrogant. Are we close? We are. I didn't expect you to be. Lu Shi said, they say you are stupid, but I think you are smart. How was she stupid? She was sharp-tongued and vulgar. Gu Min rolled her eyes at him and ignored him. Even if Lu Shi was just a bad-tempered Shota, not a scumbag, history told Gu Min that he would become a scumbag. Gu Min thought of the history professor, Lu Shi. He had said that Emperor Chen's biological mother was Gu Zhen's sister, not Gu Zhen. This speculation was criticized by the mainstream media and the royal family did not admit it. He thought the professor's speculation was funny. If what he said was true, didn't it mean that she was going to marry a scumbag? Impossible. She had transmigrated and the original owner had died young. How could Emperor Chen's mother be Gu Min? Right? She had not seen Gu Zhen after transmigrating for so long. She had to go back and take a look. Maybe she could see the future Emperor Chen's childhood through the lowly version of Gu Zhen. Is this your upbringing? Calling people stupid to their faces? Gu Min snorted. Lu Shi could not win against her, so he thought of another way to get back at her. I saw you catch the whip with your bare hands. Have you practiced martial arts? Gu Min said humbly, a little. I also learned some martial arts from a martial arts master. Do you want to spar with me? Gu Min turned to look at him. Are you sure? Lu Shi said, don't be afraid. I will go easy on you. I won't use a whip or other weapons. Gu Min snorted. Arrogant. I can beat you with one hand. Lu Shi was speechless. Listen to what she said. Who was the arrogant one? It turned out that Lu Shi was really no match for her. He was pressed to the ground and begged for mercy. What kind of strength is this? You're like a bull. Lu Shi rubbed his bruised wrist. He grimaced in pain and tears came out. Gu Min said, it's not that I'm strong. It's that you can't take a beating. What does it have to do with me? Lu Shi curled his lips. He was angry but did not dare to say anything. What's the name of the martial arts master who taught you? Gu Min rolled her eyes at him. What? Are you trying to poach me? Are you trying to get him to teach you martial arts and then beat me up? Lu Shi's thoughts were exposed, but he was not angry. He admitted it openly. So what? A man who beats a woman is so useless. Gu Min sneered. A man who can't even beat a woman is even more useless. Lu Shi was speechless at Gu Min's words. He was so angry that he almost fell to the ground. Gu Min had been in Hejian County for 2 months. She had become familiar with Lu Shi, but she was still more familiar with Bai Dai. She really liked the cute girl who blushed at every turn. She was soft and fragrant. I heard that there is a super famous Lang Lang Alley in Hejian County. Have you been there? Lang Lang Alley sounded strange, but it was actually a red light district, a place that could not be spoken of. Gu Min remembered a famous saying on the internet. Which woman didn't go to the brothel to experience the world? This time, she had no soul. Lang Lang Alley was located on a street near the market in Hejian County. It was very far from Lu Shi's old house. Lu Shi blushed and scolded, "You're really shameless. Which girl would want to go to that kind of place? You're such a hypocrite. I saw the fire avoidance painting in your study. You're so young but you're so naughty. How dare you scold me? You even looked at that. Shameless." No matter how bad Lu Shi's personality was, he was still a kid. He couldn't resist his curiosity. He couldn't resist the urging of others. He learned from the older Langjuns in his family and peeked at the fire avoidance painting. He was ashamed of himself, but he didn't expect Gu Min to be so straightforward. "Are you going or not?" "Nope." "Fine, I'll go if you don't want to." Gu Min was not afraid of anything. She had been close to Lu Shi recently. If her mother blamed her, she would blame it on Lu Shi. The sky was dark. There were red lights on both sides of the street, making the night look as bright as day. The wind was blowing, and flowers were blooming everywhere. "Ah, this is Lang Lang Alley? It's so lively." Gu Min looked at the scenery outside the carriage and exclaimed. Lu Shi crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked gloomy. Look at me. Don't I look like a playboy? Gu Min was wearing a man's shirt. Because she was still young, people wouldn't suspect that she was a girl. Lu Shi attacked her mercilessly. You haven't even grown your pubic hair yet. How dare you call yourself a playboy? Gu Min curled her lips. The two of them went to the famous brothel in Lang Lang Alley with the help of the guards. The matchmakers couldn't help but laugh when they saw them. They had seen all kinds of customers, but they had never seen a kid who was 6 or 7 years old. Ordinary boys were still wearing open-crotch pants. Lu Shi's ears were red. I've lost all my face. Gu Min said, come on. You don't have any face left. Don't blame it on me. Lu Shi had been an educator for many years, but he was a complete slacker. He couldn't even write a word well. He was often punished by his father and brothers. Lang Lang Alley was a brothel, but it was also elegant. Gu Min laughed. These days, no one wants a brothel who can't recite poetry and is proficient in it. Lu Shi's face darkened. He was suddenly angry. There was no brothel in Lang Lang Alley. Gu Min's words were obviously mocking him for being ignorant and incompetent. He didn't have a family to rely on and was inferior to a brothel. You can't stop your mouth. Sooner or later, you'll die because of it, he said angrily. Let's see who's blind enough to marry you. Gu Min laughed. You don't have to worry. With the status of the Gu family, there are many people who want to marry me. Lu Shi saw that Gu Min didn't have any stage fright in Lang Lang Alley. Instead, she was laughing and playing with the other girls. His face turned green. Shameless. The news of the two children going to Lang Lang Alley naturally reached the ears of their parents. Mrs. Gu thought that Lu Shi had instigated it and was suddenly angry. You're really bad. You know how to go to brothels at such a young age. If my son was not so young, he would have lost his reputation. Gu Min secretly shrugged and betrayed Lu Shi without any burden. Anyway, this playboy's reputation was already bad. It was normal for him to be a scapegoat. Perhaps it was because Lu Shi's character was too bad. He had gone to the suburbs with his friends to race horses, but the horse had been bitten by a vegetable snake and was frightened. Gu Min just happened to pass by on her horse and caught up with him in a cloud of dust. She then rescued the little foppish playboy who had lost his head out of fear. Your horsemanship is so bad. Don't come out to die. Gu Min stood up and accidentally touched his wound. She secretly gasped. Lu Shi's eyes were red and his breath was short because of fear. He looked very pitiful. I don't need you to pretend to be kind. Lu Shi raised his eyes to look at Gu Min, who was standing against the light. He felt a stinging pain in his eyes. Thinking of her mockery, he suddenly became angry. TSK, my good intentions are taken as malicious intent. Gu Min hit the whip and jumped on the horse. She actually left Lu Shi where he was and planned to let the playboy walk home pitifully. Gu Min. Lu Shi secretly clenched his teeth and tears of grievance came out of his eyes. Not long after, he heard the sound of horse hoofs. It was Gu Min who had returned. Thinking about it, you are quite pitiful. Come on and ride steadily. Not long after, Gu Min returned with her mother. In the blink of an eye, it was winter. Because of the terrain in Langyi County, the winter was not very cold. However, the surrounding mountains were covered with snow. Many gentry families and celebrities liked to go up the mountain during this season to hold poetry meetings. Gu Min's father was one of the famous people in Langyi. Not only was he a famous person, but he was also a famous person. He was a high official in the imperial court and had also been in charge of the talent selection assessment in Dongqing. He was the person that all the forces wanted to curry favor with. Her father was very powerful and her family was also very powerful. Occasionally, Gu Min would also feel proud. She was probably the legendary heroine with the halo of the heroine. She was born at the end of the line that others could not reach even if they worked hard for a lifetime. Of course, this thought only lasted for a while. She was the Gu Min of the future world 300 years later, not the retarded Gu Min of this era. If she really wanted to say that she would be reincarnated, the credit should be given to the original owner. As an outsider, she was lucky to have what she had today. She should cherish what she had instead of being proud of herself. Because he was worried that his daughter would be bored at home, her father specially took her out to participate in a gathering organized by the famous scholars. Gu Min was confused. If she really had to describe her feelings, it could be summed up in 4 words. I don't understand, but I think it's awesome. Her father saw that Gu Min's little face was a little tired, so he smiled and ordered the maid to take her around. Gu Min smiled and said, "Thank you, father." In her previous life, Gu Min was born in a coastal city in the south. The first time she saw snow was in the winter of her first semester at Tianhua University. That snow was really heavy. It fell continuously for 2 days, and the thickness was up to her calves. The snow on the mountain was not heavy, and the thickness was only half a knuckle. It was a thin layer that began to melt as soon as the sun came out. As the saying goes, it's not cold when it snows, but when it melts, it's coldest when it melts. Gu Min shivered and wrapped her cloak tightly around her body. It's so beautiful. Passing by a forest of red plum blossoms covered in snow, the eye-catching red color almost caught people's eyes at first glance. She tiptoed and tried to break off a plum blossom, but she was short and could not reach it even after a while. "There's a broken temple here," the maid advised. "Lady, you can't go to such a dark and gloomy place." Gu Min said, "The temple worships deities. Even if it's broken, ordinary demons wouldn't dare to go near it, right?" "How is it gloomy?" As soon as she finished speaking, she heard a suppressed laugh. "There's someone in the broken temple? Who's peeping and eavesdropping there?" Gu Min lifted the hem of her dress and entered the rundown temple. She found a bonfire inside, and a young man with a pale complexion and patched clothes was sitting near the bonfire. This young man was very good-looking. Even though he was sitting in the broken temple, he gave people the illusion that he was in a high position. This young man's eyebrows were filled with a strong sense of righteousness, and his eyes were clear and bright. At a glance, one could tell that he was an upright and magnanimous person. At this moment, a sentence echoed in Gu Min's mind. "Standing like an orchid, smiling like the bright moon in one's bosom." In her era, even the young best actor would not be able to match up to this kind of appearance. Looking at the young man's clothes, Gu Min knew that he lived a poor life. He was most likely a poor scholar from a poor family. "Was it you who laughed just now?" Gu Min asked the young man, but her eyes were fixed on his fingers. This person's fingers were red from the cold, and there were even frostbites in some places. His clothes were shabby and thin. He was obviously shivering in the cold, but his expression was still calm. Gu Min secretly curled her lips. He was so poor, but he still put on the airs of a scholar. She really couldn't deal with these ancient people. The young man seemed to be sick, and his voice was hoarse and weak. Hearing the clever words from the young lady, "I deeply agree," he seemed to want to say something, but an urge to cough rose in his throat. He coughed so hard that his whole face turned red, and the veins on his forehead bulged. "You're very sick. Why don't you see a doctor?" The young man said, "I'm penniless and have no fixed abode. Where can I get the money to see a doctor? It's just a minor illness. It's not a big deal." "That won't do. A minor illness can easily become a major illness if it's dragged on. Don't you know this?" Gu Min said, "Looking at your clothes and the book box next to you, you should be a literate person. You can just find a job to copy letters and books to get the money for the medicine." The young man smiled and said, "Young lady's words remind me of a saying." Gu Min tilted her head and asked, "Are you trying to say, why don't I eat minced meat?" The young man bowed and said, "Sorry for the offense." Gu Min said, "Tiske, you really want to say that about me?" The young man smiled bitterly and said, "Although what the young lady said is a way to make a living, imagination is often different from reality. It's not that easy to make a living." Gu Min didn't know what was going on, but looking at the young man's open and honest attitude, Gu Min knew that she had misunderstood him. "But, you can't continue to delay this illness of yours." Even if Gu Min didn't have any medical skills, she knew that the young man was seriously ill. If the fever was too serious, it could even turn into pneumonia. Pneumonia had a high fatality rate in her era, not to mention the current era with low medical standards. The young man put a fist to his lips and coughed lightly. He smiled and said, "Let fate decide." Gu Min was even more confused. How could he still smile when he was so seriously ill? "Do you have parents?" The young man said, "My father passed away, and I have a mother at home." Gu Min said in an old-fashioned manner, "Since you have an old mother at home that needs your support, you should cherish your body more and think of a way to cure your illness. You're young and strong, and you're literate. Think of a way. There's always another way out." The young man was amused by Gu Min. Gu Min said again, "If it were me, I'd definitely think of a way to live as long as I can live." The young man was seriously ill, but his eyes were as dazzling as the moon and stars in the sky. "Young lady, you're young, but you have a lot of ideas. I'm slow-witted and can't think of another way to survive. What should I do?" Gu Min blinked and suddenly said, "What's your name?" The young man asked her, "Why are you asking this?" "I pity that you have an old mother at home to support, and you're sick. Even if you want to earn money, you can't." Gu Min rolled her eyes and said to the young man with a smile, "How about this? Tell me your name and write me an IOU. I'll lend you some money for a while. When your body is better and you have the ability to earn money, you can return the money to me. Wouldn't that be the best of both worlds? How about it?" The young man coughed with a smile. Gu Min said angrily, "What? You don't believe me?" "Why wouldn't I believe you? The pearls and jade from your temples are worth several years of my chewing. Of course I believe you." The young man said with a smile, "However, it's a good thing that you're kind, but you can't be overly kind. If I have any evil intentions, what should I do?" Gu Min curled her lips and said, "You think too highly of yourself. How can you have any evil intentions when you're so sick? You're the one who has the heart but is powerless." The young man shook his head with a smile. Gu Min said, "Why? You don't accept it? Are you also one of those stubborn and pedantic scholars who would rather die than accept food given in handouts?" The young man asked, "Those who don't accept food given in handouts are praised for having integrity and pride. How come you call me a stubborn and pedantic scholar?" Gu Min spread her hands and said, "I'm a layman. My life is the most important." The young man said with a smile, "Interesting. That's really interesting." Gu Min felt a little creeped out by the young man's stare. She pouted and said, "What's interesting?" The young man refused to say it clearly. He only said, "My surname is Zhu, and my name is Ning. My courtesy name is Chun." Gu Min repeated, "Zhu Ning, Zhu Cha." This name sounds familiar. She didn't have the memories of the original owner of this body. A name that sounded familiar to her must be someone from her previous life. Could it be that this Zhu Ning was a character from a history book? If time could be reversed, Gu Min definitely wouldn't dare to slack off during class. She raised her hand to her forehead and said in distress, "Forget it. If I can't remember, then I won't think about it." Gu Min asked the servant girl to bring her 10 taels of silver and lent it to the young man. The young man took out a blank bamboo slip and an IOU. "Yuan Jing?" Gu Min's eyes suddenly widened. She looked at it again and again. Besides Zhu Ning and his courtesy name Chun Dun, there were also 2 small characters, Yuan Jing. The young man said, "It's just a nickname I came up with out of boredom." Gu Min calculated the young man's age and almost knelt down for him. Damn, what kind of luck did she have to meet the rumored male lead, Tom Su Yuan Jing? Why did she say so? She could tell by looking at Yuan Jing's life history. He was definitely Tom Su, a bug with the male lead halo. Master Yuan Jing was born in the last years of Dongqing and was one of the famous scholars of the time. He was born with auspicious signs and his childhood experience was even more extraordinary. He met an immortal at the age of 7 and was blessed by the immortal, who cleansed his marrow and changed his bones. Before he was 20, he was already well-versed in astronomy and geography. He was proficient in the 5 elements, 8 trigrams, and Qimen Duanjia. He was also proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy, and poetry. He was even proficient in irrigation and water conservancy and knew about business and military strategy. He was a walking demon with a limitless halo. In the last years of Dongqing, he battled with the envoy of the northern borderline. He took 3 cities and angered the envoy to death. He became famous after the battle. After he became famous, Master Yuanjing did not accept the recruitment of various forces. Instead, he returned to his ancestral home in Langjia County and opened a private school. At that time, private schools were popular in Langjia County. Master Yuanjing relied on his reputation to slowly attract students and built his reputation. He devoted himself to teaching for more than 10 years. 3 of his disciples later became famous strategists during the chaos of the 5 kingdoms. Other than that, the students who studied in his private school were also successful. 56 of them became officials and 23 of them became famous. During the chaos of the 5 kingdoms, it was more like a shuraba for Master Yuanjing's students than a chaotic fight among the feudal lords. They were in almost every feudal lord's tent and each occupied a different position. During the chaos of the 5 kingdoms, Master Yuanjing did not become an official. However, his teaching methods were quite advanced. After the Jiang dynasty was founded, Emperor Qin gave him the supreme honor of the world's teacher. Of course, Secretary Shi, the master of the Ziyuan mirror, declined the honor. In all fairness, if Gu Min was Master Yuanjing, she would also decline it. But Master Yuanjing taught countless students in his life. Most of his students who became officials died in the hands of Emperor Qin. Although the chaos was cruel, from a teacher's point of view, it was really heartbreaking. Master Yuanjing's 3 most beloved students, Qing Jing, Lu Zheng and Han Yu, died because of Emperor Qin. Qing Jing committed suicide in prison, Lu Zheng jumped out of the city and died, and Han Yu committed suicide by swallowing gold. It was not Emperor Qin who did it, but she did it. Even if Master Yuanjing did not bear a grudge because of this, it would still be difficult for him to calm down. This could be seen from the epitaph that Master Yuanjing wrote for himself. It was difficult to calm down, and it was difficult to calm down. There was still a lot of contribution to be made. Jiang dynasty's initial educational foundation was created by this old man. The students of later generations loved and hated him at the same time. On the year of the college entrance examination, there was a grave-digging craze among the students. The students formed groups to dig Master Yuanjing's grave. Of course, this was only said verbally. No one dared to do it. The students were eager to learn from Master Yuanjing. At this moment, seeing Master Yuanjing in the flesh, Gu Min could not help but want to worship this great god. The young man noticed that Gu Min's expression was complicated. He asked, "What's wrong with this nickname?" Gu Min stammered, "There's nothing wrong with it. Master Yuanjing is good. I believe you will be remembered in history." The young man smiled faintly. Gu Min felt uncomfortable as if she was sitting on pins and needles. "I will definitely repay you for your kindness today in the future." Gu Min scratched her head and said, "Let me think. I think you will be very capable in the future and will be famous. If you open a private school in the future, I will definitely let you teach my child. You don't have to teach your child well. You just have to be decent." At that time, he might even send Gu Xin's child, the future Emperor Qin, to Master Yuanjing's private school. In that case, Emperor Qin and the future hero would be classmates. They would not stab each other so harshly, right? The young man burst into laughter. He almost choked. "You're only 6 years old now. Why are you thinking of your own child?" Gu Min blushed. "This is called planning for a rainy day. I'm sure you have the potential to be famous. Why don't we take a gamble?" Gambling is a bad karma. Skills are not part of the 6 arts. The saints also said that a gentleman should not gamble. You shouldn't get involved in such a bad habit at such a young age. The young version of Master Yuanjing looked like he would in the future. Gu Min murmured in her heart. He looked like a teaching director. Gu Min said, "With your looks, you should be a teacher who teaches and educates people." The young man smiled faintly without saying anything. Gu Min stood up and flicked off the dust on her dress. "I'll go back first. I don't want father to worry. We'll meet again if fate allows it." She ran away, leaving Zhu Ning sitting in the same place. He looked at the borrowed money and smiled bitterly. It doesn't seem like an evil spirit. Although the young man had only learned mystic arts for a short time, he was extremely talented. He was a genius who could understand everything with just a hint. He noticed something was wrong just by looking at Gu Min's face. After testing her, he realized that she was a pure and innocent person. She did not look like an evil spirit at all. On the other side, Gu Min returned to the assembly. The maidservant secretly told Gu Min's father about her experience. Juning? Isn't he a proud scholar from a poor family? Why is he willing to accept Min Er's financial aid? Gu Min said, he's healthy, but he hides in the ruined temple to avoid the snow. He seems to be sick too. I lent him some money out of kindness. Her father pinched her cheeks in amusement and said, my son is kind. Gu Min asked Yuan Jing to write an IOU, but she did not say which family she was from. It was obvious that she wanted to give him money and save his face. She smiled and showed her white teeth. She flattered the old man. It's all because of your good teaching, father. Her father changed the topic and said, even so, it's not good for my son to get too close to the poor, especially those with a stubborn temper. Yuan Jing's ancestors were not poor, but his family was in decline. According to her father's temper, he naturally looked down on them. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.